Here. Hey guys, welcome to another week of Game of Thrones Book Club, where we meet to discuss a certain number of pages from George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. We are still on the first book of Game of Thrones. This is week 9, and looks like we'll be wrapping up with 10 weeks of book club, just like a certain season of television, which wrapped up this book in the same amount of time. So we're basically like HBO here at Practical Folks, technical difficulties notwithstanding. I'm James.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Joel.
And yes, Chelsea and I have read through the series, all of it. Caitlin's read this book before, and this is her first reread. This is Joel's first read. Normally we have Gressel here, who's read the entire series about 37 times. But he just got married and is all honeymooned out. He just helped us fix a couple of technical problems that we had, but
I'm Gressel now, actually.
now you're Gressel.
Yeah, I married Eric.
You're the Gressel now.
Oh, also, yes, thanks, Javier Garcia. I do have a nasty 80s porn stash on my face. That's because I willingly sacrifice my attractiveness for my art. Because last night we did a little Halloween thing for the channel, and I was Freddie Mercury. And now I have to be Littlefinger in a few weeks, so I'm just going to walk around with this stupid fucking thing.
I don't know that you sacrificed your attractiveness. I mean, to some people, maybe. To other people, maybe you got more attractive.
Joel, those people shouldn't be allowed within a certain number of yards of... All right.
Okay.
So, today we'll be covering chapters Catelyn 8. Catelyn 8 to Tyrion 8.
Caitlin 8.
I know, you throw me off every time
Catelyn
you're
8.
here, Caitlin.
I'm Cat too.
So this was... Right, this is $5.95 to
$6.94.
$6.94 in the mass market paperback edition. How's everyone doing? How's everyone?
Good. I'm excited to just be at the end of this book. You know? I like this book, but I'm excited to get to stuff that's really different.
Yes.
Me too.
We'll be there soon enough.
I'm enjoying it. I liked tuning in as a listener or viewer to the episode, or I guess book club last week, and seeing Caitlin and Liz contributing. It was pretty cool. I'm sad I missed out on the Night's Watch oath.
Oh, yeah.
I took it on the plane that I was flying on, so we're good. Those are the guys that I ascribed to.
No one witnessed it. Also, before,
yes.
Hannah Lewis sent me this mug after a few weeks ago I bemoaned that there was no Littlefinger mug online. She made this mug for me and sent it to me, and it's a mug with Littlefinger's
I love it.
Smiling
just
face.
shit-eating smirk on it, and I love it. I'm so happy that I have it. I hope you guys can see it pretty well. Thank you, Hannah Lewis. Awesome fan. Always have been.
I opened the box because I was like, oh, it's mysterious package. James was like, oh yeah, you can open it. And I just opened the flaps and it what the fuck? It's really cool. But his face was just looking up at me.
Really? That's how it was packaged? Perfect.
Yeah.
He's a handsome man. Mustache notwithstanding.
Yeah.
We also got a new sigil sent to us by Stephanie MC91. I don't know if you're here, Stephanie, but let's advertise this guy. Boom! Joel and Chelsea, you guys can, This sigil has our pot of coffee in it. I'll just leave that sitting there.
Oh, I got it.
And it's got a little
pot
bit
of coffee.
Oh, here, actually top me off then.
They can't see.
Yeah, you're doing
stage
work that they
Oh,
can see.
here, I'll put it in front of your face.
Oh yeah, here.
Pot of coffee.
Here, top me off. So thank you for that.
I love it. I love that Lucy's in the background.
I love Lucy in the background a lot.
And that's just going to live up there.
Yep. Love me.
All right. I think we can get into it.
Well, what I was going to say is that I'm enjoying this read through, thinking of the first time that I read it, I just read it to read it. And this time I'm enjoying looking at literary tropes because that's what I do. Pretty fun for me.
Oh, medieval. Yeah. The other day, Caitlin ran into me and was like, I just had a class about dreams in medieval literature, and there are two types of dreams. What are they?
So the medieval trope of dreaming in literature is the somnium naturale or the somnium celestiale. And I have some notes about it actually for later in our discussion. But the somnium celestiale is the prophetic dream, and the somnium naturale is the dream that you have because your bodily humors are just kind of like messed up. Like you haven't had enough to eat, or you haven't had enough to drink, or your
there's like four humors.
of your
bile,
4 temperaments, you're like messed up somehow.
Humors?
Yeah, it's bile, and I just only remember bile, but they're weird.
I
Just
remember them
fluids,
by their
Yeah,
names
they
because
fill
you
your
have
sinuses.
sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and the other one that starts with like a PH or a P sound. I don't remember, but I read a really cool article about that like last year.
We'll talk.
Is that wine?
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
All right.
They're still on their honeymoon.
Just drawing it out as much as I can. All right, let's get into it. And that first chapter is Catelyn, damn it.
Catelyn.
I love this. You should just spell it like my name.
So our first
Are you
chapter.
going to take Moat Catelyn too?
Because that's almost spelled exactly like my
I know,
name.
it's the closest.
So our first.
Phlegmatic. Thank
Oh
you.
yeah, phlegm is
Thank you,
definitely-
everybody
Ooh,
in there,
love
Phoebe
phlegm.
and Top 100 Movie Challenge, who reminded me of phlegmatic,
All right, starting with
that's the damp one.
starting with Catelyn 8. What happens in this chapter? Let me get to my little summary, unless someone else knows off the top of their head.
Cat
Ooh.
finds Rob and his bannermen.
Yes, and they go
And-
over military strategy, and
Yes.
she kind of coaxes him into being a wise little ruler.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like her kind of coaching him through battle tactics, and it's really sweet.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
2 cat chapters in this reading, and I
Yeah.
think both of them do a lot to make me like her and respect her as a wise mother.
Yeah, I really wish I could have seen the team of Ned and Kat a little more, and I think if they had been able to stick together, she brings assets that he doesn't have.
Yeah.
He she even questions, like, did Ned teach him enough wisdom besides valor? Would he kneel? And I think she balances Ned in really interesting ways.
Yeah. So the last time we saw Catelyn was when she was at Tyrion's trial. Now she's long gone from them there. She talks a little bit in flashback about what happened. But this first page introduces us to Lord Wyman Manderley.
I know. I didn't realize he shows up that early.
Yeah, so he's not on page here, but he's mentioned.
Yes, you guys.
And Chelsea, you're a big fan,
I'm
so I've heard.
such a big fan of Wyman Manderley, and he was in the show briefly. They gave a big monologue of his to Lyanna Mormont, which I was okay with because she's just great. But you're gonna love Wyman Manderley as much as me by the
Yeah.
time we're done reading these books.
I'm excited to meet his daughter.
Yes, you are.
So, 2? 1? Does
He
have 2 daughters?
there's Wyla.
Yeah,
and
Wyla's the
one-
firebrand,
the one with
isn't
the
She has like green hair.
That's
yeah.
what I'm excited to meet.
And I can't remember the other one, but yeah, Manderleys are awesome, and he.
Do they have dye? How did she get her hair green?
They either
Yeah, they have I
Cool.
think of like the Norvosi.
Yeah, or Kool-Aid.
Because I read
Yeah, I don't know
about
those people.
her on the wiki.
No, both.
A friend of mine was telling me about how awesome she
course.
is. So
Yeah.
I read about her on the wiki,
Yeah,
and
be
I'm looking forward to
excited.
meeting her.
She's like Lyanna Mormont levels of just like kick-ass little kid.
My friend was like, "You should cosplay her." I was like, "I have to meet her first."
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, but yeah, the Manderleys are awesome. Wyman's awesome. He is a gigantic fat man.
Yes,
He's
Lord Too Fat to Sit a Horse.
Yeah, it's too fat to sit a horse.
Which is referenced here. He had grown too stout to sit a horse, but later that does become his
That's
name.
his nickname. People call him that.
And
Yeah.
his son, Sir Wylas, was only a few eels short of not being able to mount his horse.
And Sir Wendell, the younger boy, would have been the fattest man she'd ever known had she only neglected to meet his father and brother.
He had a great time writing this paragraph.
I love all the language that he uses to describe them, like few eels short, and then they have walrus mustaches because their sigil's a merman, and they're very. I associate them with like nautical themes, especially like the green hair that we'll see later. They're just they're like water people.
Yeah, and
Which is cool.
I'll give a fun little backstory on the House Manderley. They were originally a southern family because the Mander is a river in the Reach, I believe, and that was where their house originally was. But I forget why they fled. but they moved to White Harbor, which is in the north. It's part of the North's domain, and it's on the east side of the realm.
It's on the east side.
Yeah. It's a huge harbor. It's, I think, the biggest city in the north.
That sounds right.
I believe White Harbor is like the largest city in the north.
And so then the Manderleys are the southernmost northern house.
I'm not sure if that's true geographically, but they are a southern house.
I thought
they're
literally.
Andals.
I thought geographically they were.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the risk map.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I've attacked the Mander several times as the Baratheon, so I know where it is.
That's so rude.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Wyla's a granddaughter, not a daughter.
Okay.
Thank you.
But yeah, it is the only city in the north. Thank you, Javier. I thought so. But yeah, they're Andals, not First Men, but they came to the north, and the Starks accepted them.
And they have codes like First Men. You know?
Yeah.
They're like an honorable family.
It's because they respect those Starks so much for
Yeah.
taking them in.
Exactly.
Nice.
Also, I enjoy that in the section that we're reading, we have men who have bald or hairless heads described, and the Manderleys get heads as bare as a baby's bottom, and Tywin does not get that.
No.
Nope.
What do you mean? Like Tywin shaves his head?
But
Yeah.
nothing
but
about
it's-
him is soft.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
It's not given the same flowery language.
I think, what is it? He starts, they just say, like, he starts to have a receding hairline and then he just shaves his whole head.
No half
No
measures.
half measures.
So as it's killing me. As Catelyn comes up to moat
I
Kaelin,
went up to moat myself.
I really like the description of moat Kaelin. It's this,
Oh, me too,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's this ruined
It's very cool.
stronghold, but it's still enough remains for it
Yeah.
to still be effective. It is one of the North's best defense against southern ambitions, if you will,
Yeah.
any kind of invasion. And
Never mind.
yeah, just like the description of the Gatehouse Tower, the Drunkard Tower, and the Children's Tower. And, yes, where legend said the children of the forest had once called upon their nameless gods to send the hammer of the waters. That theory or myth.
I thought that was something.
Yes.
It stood out to me.
So that took place during the war between the children of the forest and the first men. And legend has it that the children of the forest, as it is written here, called down the waters of their gods and flooded the neck. And that's why the neck is a narrow pass between the south and the north, and it's so boggy and marshy. It's because they did that as a means to protect the north from the south.
Was that at the same time that they tried to cut off Westeros from Essos, or was that a separate event?
Are you talking about the broken arm?
Yes.
That would have been later, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the broken arm was first to
Yeah,
stop
okay. Gotcha.
stem the tide.
I also, and maybe this is reading into it too much, but I thought it was an interesting little connection. It's the children's tower that it's lost half its crown. It looked as if some great beast had taken a bite out of the crenellations along the tower top and spit the rubble across the bog. Then later, on the next page, we see that the Great John has his sigil on the children's tower, and it's the giant in chains. And I wonder if giants had any reason to do with that tower being ripped apart, because it would make sense time-wise. So I wonder if that's a little like wink, wink.
Well, like
from
the
George.
giants when they were fighting the first men when they came over.
Interesting.
That's a good catch. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked Kat's description. When night falls, there are said to be ghosts, cold, vengeful spirits of the north who hunger for southern blood. Like,
Yeah.
that is creepy.
Yeah.
This place
Like-
just sounds so cool.
You're gonna
Yeah.
have some of the Inferi from Harry Potter rising up out of the bog and just like, but they're like white Inferi.
I thought it was this
called Inferi?
In the
Inferi?
I don't know.
I don't know how to
Harry
pronounce
Potter.
it, but like it's in
Yeah, I know
when they're going to get the locket and then the
Bring
like
Half-Blood Prince.
yeah, and the whole
the
the
water.
like water is just
Yeah.
filled with these dead like body creatures, and they come out of the water and they just like grab at you, and it's kind of like whites, but like I'm picturing Inferi here coming out of the bog, but they're,
Oh,
like
that-
whites.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
creepy.
It reminded me a little bit like
Lord
a
of
cross
the Rings?
between, Lord of the Rings, the Dead Marshes, and also the Fire Swamp from The Princess Bride with the quicksand and the unusual creatures.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking of Labyrinth.
The
with
bog
of
what is it?
something stench.
Unbearable stench.
Yeah.
These are references.
Yeah, these are references.
Lots of fantasy references that we can force into this conversation.
Do we
Yeah.
think that lizard lions, are those just like the tiny little lizards that kind of go like that?
Oh, no, I think
Or-
they're like Komodo dragons.
Oh, I always imagine them being like horned lizards.
Yeah, they could.
But
I
they're probably bigger.
I assume they're big enough to be a threat to men.
No.
So Catelyn runs into Robb, and of course he is playing a man's part.
Yeah.
Wait, I really love when she sees him, she compares him to Edmure, to her brother.
Yeah.
I'm-
Instead of, say,
Ned.
Ned.
Yeah. And I'm just sort of thinking about what we know happens to Edmure later. Is this significant? Could it be?
As far as him being captured?
As far as him maybe not making the right decisions as a lord, or like not being strong enough to hold the... I might be reading too much into it. I just thought it was interesting that she compared him to Edmure, and then later in this set of readings,
We find out
Edmure's
he's been captured.
yeah.
At least Rob's a little less of a weenie.
Robb knows strategy better.
Yeah.
Edmure does end up taking the phrase up on the marriage offer.
He does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he does, but
Not in this set of readings.
yeah, I'll get to it on the second Catelyn chapter that we read here.
I just love when she sees him and it's her baby.
Yeah, and
But she can't act like a mom.
I love though that Grey Wind comes over to her and greets her as just a surrogate because
Yeah.
they can't have that moment yet.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. He comes over and he sniffs her hand. Mm-hmm. He gives her a little bit of and she strokes the wolf's head gently. Right, that's the embrace that they can't have in public as
Yeah.
mother and son. So
Aw. So begins just Robb and Catelyn breaking my heart because they're so sweet in each chapter.
Yeah.
It sucks. They're just, I love them. I love her coaching him and just the pair of them. And honestly, I might, in the books, like it more having Robb be younger for this specific arc, because I love him being less experienced and Catelyn having to like really coach him and like it's so vividly communicated that he's like really young and show Robb is like a man.
yeah, like on page 601 when
And a good-looking man.
Yes.
when they're talking about what they're gonna do, especially now that she doesn't have Tyrion anymore. He just says, "Mother, what are we going to do?" Like, do stressed, and you can really read it as a little boy.
And he cries a little bit at some, or like does he cry or he like tries not to? Yeah, his eyes are shining, like he's clearly on the verge of tears for a lot of this, and that would never be the case with show Robb.
Yeah. Like he would never say on page 600, "Are you sending me back to Winterfell?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like I like that arc too because we, back it was a Bran chapter I think last week when the Great John busts out his sword and is being really kind of disrespectful, and then
When
Grey Wind
Grey
sort
Wind
of lops off the fingers.
Some fingers.
Yeah. We get that moment and sort of the Lord Rob, but then I liked in the books how we had the moment after with Bran where he was saying how afraid he was. And
I think that's missing from the show.
Yeah.
We don't have that insight because he's not that character.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of people in the chat are talking about the Robb the boy versus Robb the Lord, and his vulnerability being really evident.
Yeah, it's much more clear in the show that Robb the Lord is more of like a mask or just a character he's trying to play because he feels the need to, especially with Eddard being gone, that he feels he has to do this to impress upon the rest of the North.
Yeah.
That there is still a Stark who they can follow.
Yeah.
And yes, also part of this on 603, she was hearing the Lord's bannermen speaking with her son's voice. And she realizes that he's so young and impressionable that really he's just going to be doing what they tell him to do. And she makes a point to say, be certain, make no mistake, Robb, these are your bannermen, not your friends. Especially when you have people like Roose Bolton.
Yeah.
Because even is it this chapter where he says that like he's afraid of Roose Bolton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because she's saying that you need someone to stay here at Moat Cailin to defend it, and because that's all that stands between Tywin and Winterfell when the armies leave. And you want cold cunning, I should think, not courage. Roose Bolton, Rob said it once. That man scares me.
He should.
I wrote, as well he should.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when
I just want to point out for anyone doing audiobooks that Roose Bolton's voice in the audiobooks it makes sense because it matches the description.
Is it soft and quiet?
No, but when you're used to Roose Bolton in the show, who has like the sexiest voice of all time, Roose Bolton in the books is like this. It's like really high pitched and like very soft.
No.
It's
very
weird.
schemy.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Roose Bolton for a little bit? Because
Yes.
I find it really interesting that in the beginning, it's Roose who brings up Tyrion as a hostage and using him as a hostage. And it's, in our later chapter, there's a sort of questionable thing with Roose as well. And I wrote down at the section where it's Roose Bolton, that man scares me, I wrote down, in what ways is Roose working like Littlefinger? In what ways do they operate sort of the same behind-the-scenes trickery without being upfront about it?
Oh, and so you're looking at his attempt to use Tyrion as Tyrion as a hostage?
Just like he's the one who brings it up.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to me. And then I don't remember what chapter. Maybe it's the other cat chapter. Yeah, it's the other cat chapter. And Roose is like, "Well, Walder Frey could sell you to the Lannisters." And I'm like, "Well, you would say that, wouldn't you?"
Yeah.
Like, we're getting this setup of Roose talking about the Lannisters in advance of what I know is coming because I've seen the show.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of knowing that that's the direction that it goes. I'm looking at what Roose is saying now.
Yeah, and Rob should be too, because as Catelyn points out, you can't really trust him. The Boltons were the last house, I think, to swear fealty to the Starks in the north.
Yeah.
And I think they are the house that has risen up in rebellion most frequently against the Starks. So
really?
this, what we're going to see in this series is not an incident without background. The Boltons and the Starks have always had a very tenuous relationship, and the Boltons have never been happy being a minor house to the Starks. And this is something that we'll see Walder Frey voice very clearly in Catelyn's second chapter, just this resentment towards larger houses. And it's something I think the show did really well, because I remember talking a lot about it on What's on the Box, just that resentment of these minor houses for having to be minor, for having to swear fealty to these other houses.
A lot of what this chapter is doing is also setting the stakes for this conflict. Catelyn, through the device of Catelyn, getting to know what Robb knows, what he knows about battle and tactics, whether he's going to be an effective leader, and then once she knows what he's going to be, trying to counsel him towards something, she's sort of laying the groundwork for what happens very much later. She's talking about, well, we can't go to King's Landing, you'll never return. We can't go back north. And on 602, if you turn your tail and retreat to Winterfell, your lords will lose all respect for you. Some may even go over to the Lannisters. The implication is if things get bad enough.
Yeah, she
Right.
knows for
Yeah.
sure that those, the houses that swear fealty to them, it's just an oath.
But then is this kind of a first misstep of hers? Like, she's already taking for granted that they will be loyal because she's like, okay, if things get really bad. But Roose Bolton is like, he already, like, so early on in the game, he's like over palling around with the Lannisters,
Yeah, well,
I don't think he is yet.
He's not.
He might be. We don't know.
I don't think it happens until he thinks, because right now, I think Roose Bolton is the kind of man. I think Roose Bolton is the kind of man who is going to see what the most advantageous route to take is.
Kind of like Littlefinger.
Sure,
Or
but right
Walder
now he's
Frey.
hanging back. He doesn't know
Yeah.
who's going to be the stronger
But
one.
I'm just saying, what I mean is, like, is it a misstep of Catelyn to then send him south?
I think for me the misstep is that she's saying, so she says later in the page, if you lose, there's no hope for any of us. And one of the flaws I think later, at least knowing what happens in the show, is that Robb keeps winning, but how he wins, or not even how he wins, but the things he's doing apart from winning battles are what ultimately destroy him. And so it's not just winning that you need to do, but you need to think of the political as well.
Yeah. Also, Joel, right after that line, if you lose, there's no hope for any of us, they say there is naught but stone at the heart of Casterly Rock.
Yeah, I noticed
In
that.
one of the most blatant foreshadowing lines of Catelyn's faith.
We get another one, I think, where it talks about her cold heart.
Yeah,
at
cold
some
like
point.
touches her heart.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that George was dropping these hints like years before he wrote.
I'm telling you, he's read Dickens. Like 100% he's familiar with the way that Charles Dickens wrote his damn novels.
What?
I feel
Why do you
very
say that?
passionately about this.
Oh, I'm sure he read Dickens, yeah.
So Charles Dickens and most Victorian authors have these extremely lengthy novels, but they came out serially. So they came out a chapter at a time. Dickens prepared this major outline before every single one of his novels, and so when the first serialization would come out, there would be this intricate cover art with like different symbols all over it, and it all connected to later plot lines. And
Okay.
I would put money on George R. R. Martin doing the exact same thing.
Just
Yeah.
like the sprawling, like Tale of Two Cities is just like
Yeah, like
huge.
when we talk about the stuff like, oh, could this be foreshadowing? Yeah, it is, because he knew it. He knew where he wanted to go.
Yeah, I think there was a released early outline of the whole Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
it's wacky though.
Yeah.
It's
The love
really
triangle
weird.
between John,
Gross.
Arya,
John
and
and Arya.
Gross.
I think it's interesting because though the beginning of it remains a little bit the same, so maybe the ends will change, but I think he knows enough about his plan to plant all the seeds, and then maybe if organically
I feel like-
they change it later, the seeds are already there.
I mean, that's not going to be the ending he goes with because it's been released now.
Oh, well, yeah, that one's just crazy.
Yeah.
But, because that outline exists, we know he has other outlines. We know
Yeah.
that he's setting stuff up way in advance, and that's why I think he's working like Dickens. This is a paper that I want to write one day.
Yeah. I'd have thought about... Oh, go ahead.
I still just don't get why they would send Bruce Bolton. If
Send him where?
south.
They don't.
Yes, they do.
I thought they're keeping him at
No.
Mocaine.
No,
No.
they send him because they're like, oh, well, let us pray he will scare Tywin Lannister as well. Like,
He's
they
the
want
one
someone
who's
cunning.
taking the smaller force.
Oh, you're
go-
right. I'm sorry.
So why? If they,
He's
Well,
a good commander.
He's cunning, but they don't think of the fact that you will be sending someone who probably will be pissed that he was the one commanding the smaller force that is supposed to get pretty much taken out. And he escapes.
Do they inform him of that? Do you think
He's smart enough to figure it
Yeah,
out.
he knows. He knows that. this
yeah,
is the
because then later
strategy.
we realize like he escaped, right? Like
Yeah.
they don't know where he is.
Yeah, I wrote a note down about that.
Yeah. Just bad judgment, Starks.
I want to point out Theon in this chapter.
Is this when he's being all
No,
cocky, or
Weird.
is the next
there's just a couple of moments with Theon, 598 and 600.
I have no
He-
idea where this is.
Oh, yeah.
Damn ebooks.
Sorry, we have the paperbacks. But this is when she first arrives and all of the lords kneel to her. Theon Greyjoy was the last. I had not looked to see you here, my lady, he said as he knelt. And then on 600, when Catelyn wants to talk to Robb alone, Theon hangs back and she has to dismiss him. I think that Theon thought that he was going to be Robb's closest advisor and confidant.
Yeah.
And he's not anymore.
I wonder if that informs his actions later at all. Like not completely, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of daddy issues going on.
Just more
there.
resentment that
But
he
just it's
assumed
another thing that kind of feeds the fire. Like, oh yeah, I'm lesser than,
than a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say, every time that I think of Balon Greyjoy, I just picture Denethor from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Similar
time.
haircuts.
Yep.
So on 604, Catelyn coaxes Robb to make a strategy, and he does. And then she says, good. She said she could hear echoes of Ned in his voice. I feel like we never see Ned as a battle commander or a strategist.
I wondered about that too.
Yeah.
I thought that maybe she was misremembering because I think Ned would have done the more honorable thing and not, and just sort of met things
Well,
more head on.
Maybe she's making assumptions about Robert's rebellion because he goes off with Robert and they win battles and they fight battles. She wasn't present for them, but maybe she's just saying, well, maybe he was making decisions there.
I don't think there's anything dishonorable in what Robb's doing. What do you mean?
I meant in terms of it's smart, but it is sending this smaller force down
to potentially just die
Yeah.
as a
As
distraction.
a distraction.
Yeah.
For something, I feel like that would just be seen as war. I don't think Ned would necessarily find that a questionable thing to do as far as war strategies go. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it just stood out to me as something, a side of Ned that we never get to see firsthand, but that obviously had to be there because he fought not only in Robert's Rebellion, but also the Greyjoy Rebellion.
Yeah.
And they defeated him, and he was a commander there, so...
And he made those savvy preparations to, talk to Lord Manderley, get the ships ready, fortify the neck.
Exactly. So I guess that is the one occasion where we did get to see him on page being strategic. And
Somewhere in here, we get Kat laying the seeds for taking Jaime captive. And I don't have page numbers because I'm reading the ebooks.
Can you think of any specific?
She says, if you should chance to take Lord Tywin or the Kingslayer captive, why then a trade might very well be possible, but that's not the heart of it. So long as you have power enough that they must fear you, Ned and your sister should be safe. Cersei is wise enough to know that she may need them to make her peace should the fighting go against her. And I just find it really interesting that it's here in this moment that she lays the seeds for what we know is going to happen down the line. Sorry, spoiler alert.
actually,
That's in the next set of readings.
Actually,
Sorry.
I noted that on 601, Rob had said, I had hoped if you still held the imp a trade of hostages, and he's saying that he would have loved to trade Tyrion for Sansa and potentially Arya. Now, what's interesting is that later on in Clash, when they have Jaime, he's reluctant to trade Jaime for the girls because he thinks he's more valuable than that.
Ugh.
So I find it interesting that, if you had just the imp, whatever, trade him for the daughters, maybe Ned.
But Jaime, we can get more.
You can get more than just a pair of daughters for
Yeah.
Jaime the Kingslayer.
I'll be interested to see how Rob evolves as a commander from this point, knowing that eventually he and Catelyn will be splitting off from one another a little bit. So right now they're very much together. He's very much taking her counsel. So I'm interested to see how he develops independently.
Yeah, what leads him to that independence.
Yeah.
If it's just experience or if he has anyone influencing his decisions. I think we can mostly move on. Any stray thoughts? Because I have a few. I did not know that the Free Cities held standing armies, as apparently they do. This host her son had assembled was not a standing army such as the Free Cities were accustomed to maintain.
Well, wouldn't? Because, for Sword of Bravos, all that.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I had kind of assumed that the Sword of Bravos was maybe the Sea Lord's personal guard or
Yeah.
personal command.
I
But it
see.
sounds as though the Free Cities, which are the 9 most western-like cities in Essos, you're talking about Bravos, Lys, Pentos, Norvos, all of those, I guess, have standing armies, which is a very modern thing. That wasn't a
militia. They have the Second Amendment.
yeah. that wasn't an aspect of feudal society, right?
I don't think so.
The standing army is a function of the state, whereas normally I feel
Yeah,
like
well, I mean, the liege lord in feudalism, the liege lord could call all of his thralls, but
there wasn't an army
didn't.
being at the ready.
Well, yeah, that's why I think it's in a Tyrion chapter where he describes he's in the vanguard with peasants,
Yeah.
farmers,
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like is Rob's army
Yeah,
too.
that's half of Rob's army at
They're
least.
small folk. They're crofters and field hands and fishermen and sheep herders. And that's why Catelyn knows that they have to go now, or else if they go back home, they're not going to want to come back out and fight.
I've heard that wasn't actually very common
What?
to have in your army small folk, because it doesn't really make that much sense.
Yeah.
Because
What in our real history?
in real, the real world. Maybe someone knows more about this than I do, but I'm pretty sure that's not really a thing, because you have to equip all. They don't have their own equipment. They're farmers.
Sometimes they just have sites.
No training, no anything. I don't know. I'm not sure if you would know anything about it. I don't really know. I don't know. Tell me live stream if I'm just making shit up.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, so in the history of the Free Cities, I don't know, were they ever more like the cities or kingdoms in Westeros, where they were ruled in a similar way to that and then evolved into freer cities with standing armies? Because they seem like the next step in civilization.
Well, they were originally outposts of the Valyrian Empire. And
Yeah.
one by one they became independent state.
They transitioned right from that. There was no like, sort of like one group who took over each of them. They kind of formed their own
no,
systems.
I think independently they became independent.
Okay.
Yeah, except
Cool.
for Bravos, which was always independent.
Oh.
It was founded by escaped slaves.
Anyway,
That's right.
other
Bravos
stray
is
thoughts
awesome.
about this chapter.
My
before we
only
move
other
on?
stray thought is that Great John used the word bunghole.
I saw that
get a
too.
couple of bungholes
That was
this
Yeah,
so
there's-
weird.
Yeah, it comes up a few times.
a little weird.
I like that Kat calls out Sansa's letter immediately as being Cersei's words, and that it's a whispered threat. Like she's like, "Yep, Sansa's a hostage." Like no matter, she says she's fine, but like that's Cersei talking.
Oh, and Howland Reed gets a shout out. Apparently,
And
Robb
the
has sent
Crannogmen.
word to Howland Reed, and just letting him know if the Lannisters come up the neck, to have the Crannogmen bleed them every step of the way. Anything else, guys?
I don't know. People are saying I'm wrong.
About what? Oh, the small folks.
Yeah, I don't know where I maybe heard that.
Javier seems to know shit about a lot of things. Oh, thank you, Stephanie
fair.
Megan. Glad
Yeah,
you could.
I love it.
See your sigil in action.
Yeah, thanks.
It's a good one.
All right.
Okay, Tyrion 7.
Tyrion time.
Tyrion time. It's Tyrion time.
So is this Tyrion introducing the Mountain Clansmen to Tywin?
Yes. I feel like we get just a nonchalant off between Tywin and Tyrion. Like it's another like parent-child meeting that we just got, but there's just they're trying to show like the least amount of emotion between.
She put a hidden Hoju in the corner.
Whoa. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna have to.
We're gonna have to look at that.
Yeah.
hidden Hoju.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he
That's
is.
so sweet.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm sorry we missed it. I like how subtle it is.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Oh.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie. That's awesome.
Anyway, so yeah, the nonchalant.
Yeah. They're. I mean, neither of them are trying to show any emotion, and Tyrion's basically saying, "Yes, the rumors of my demise were much overestimated."
Yeah.
And
It's like a competition of who can care less about the other person.
Yep.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, top 100 movie challenge. We are back to the inn at the crossroads where Tyrion was taken captive.
Everything happens at the
It's the only inn in Westeros,
It is,
as
yes.
far as I can tell.
And,
so, did they hang and just destroy the inn because they allowed the kidnapping to happen there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
And I was saying to, maybe I was talking.
I think it was me.
Yeah, I was talking to Caitlin about this before. This chapter, I think, is a good indication of how book Tyrion is not quite as sympathetic as Peter Dinklage Tyrion. Because Peter Dinklage Tyrion is kind of a flawless character. They don't really show him being a dick too much because, I mean, everyone loves him. They don't want to turn people away from this much beloved character. But here on page 608, that was the trouble with the clans. They had an absurd notion that every man's voice should be heard in council. Even their women were allowed to speak. Tyrion doesn't think much of democracy. He doesn't think much of
Also,
small
he's
folk.
sexist.
Sure, yeah, as many people are. But yeah, it's a fact that Tyrion believes in the ruling class. And probably because he was born into it, but he believes that I think that Tyrion believes that some people are meant to lead others as opposed to everyone having equality or an equal say. And this attitude really extends into callousness, I think, on page 610 when he sees the corpse of the
Innkeeper.
of the innkeep, yeah. A room, a meal, and a flagon of wine. That was all I asked. He reminded her with a sigh of reproach. Not anything sympathetic, but reproach. And
Yeah, he doesn't care that she's dead.
He does not. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any sympathy for her, and she was just an innkeeper.
She's
man.
just doing her job.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just want to point that out because as the series continues, Tyrion gets a lot darker, and I
Yeah,
think it'll be
That's
less
what I've
jarring
heard.
for you.
I'm excited to get to that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I've heard that he is really questionable
Yeah.
later on.
And I think it'll be less jarring for you if you notice these instances earlier on that show that he's not this just like all wise, like loving everyone.
Yeah, like
character.
like a more modern.
Black
Yes,
Star 2990 says Tyrion has more Tywin in him than
he would like to admit.
Oh,
for certain.
absolutely. I've discussed this with James before that if Tyrion wasn't born a dwarf, he would just be a Tywin. He would, he would be Tywin's favorite son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he is a lot smarter than Jaime. Even Jaime recognizes that he's not that smart.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tyrion would be the golden child. And it's really tragic.
But if
Well-
Tyrion were not born a dwarf,
Yeah,
would he
exactly.
be as smart as he is? Or would he be like another Jaime where
think-
he's skilled in combat and raised
He wouldn't
like
have spent
that?
so much time reading.
I guess. I don't know. I think...
I guess it comes
feel
down
like
to nature versus
yeah,
nurture.
I was
Do
gonna
you
say, like,
think
what's the
intelligence
nature? I don't
is-
know. I think part of it is that he's just very naturally intelligent. But I also think that if he weren't born a dwarf, he would not be as empathetic of a person.
Exactly.
I think he would be a huge dick.
He wouldn't care about cripples,
Yeah.
bastards, and broken
Nope.
things
Yeah.
because
he wouldn't have had that experience.
he wouldn't relate to
Right.
that.
No, like he would be Tywin.
Yeah. And Chelsea, you also had a really good point about how Tyrion is affiliated with these mountain clans.
Oh yeah,
I really like
I
this.
picked up on
He has such a good rapport with them.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. Well, I pointed this out earlier to James that I love that Tyrion has such a tie to the Mountain Clansmen, and the Mountain Clansmen are a people that define themselves by their fathers. They always say, like, Timett, son of Timett. Was it Shagga, son of Dolph? Yeah. But they define themselves by their fathers, and anytime Tyrion...
Except for Chella. Chella, daughter of...
That's true. This is
Yeah,
true.
the
But it's
Blackbeard.
lineage, yeah.
But anytime Tyrion is in a situation where he knows he can use his family name to get out of it, he's very quick to use his family name
And his
as
father's
a
name
defense,
specifically,
especially Tywin. Like, he always talks about who his father is and how his father can give you lots of money. And he also, he almost defines himself by his father.
How old is Tyrion supposed to be?
Late 20s, I think,
Late 20s?
in the books, yeah.
Okay.
I think he's also doing that because those are his options as a dwarf and as not the heir to Casterly
Oh, for
Rock.
sure.
Yeah.
He has so few options with which to command respect, so he's kind of using the tool that he has, which is Tywin, who's universally feared and also known to be super wealthy.
But I
Yeah.
just like the explicit tie to the father. And Tyrion always does that too. I
Because
think
Tyrion is basically Tyrion, son of Tywin.
yeah, he's Tyrion, son of Tywin, and I think he is a lot more similar to the Mountain Clansmen than he realizes.
Yeah.
What I love, and this goes to Tyrion's relationship with his father, and I don't know the page because I've got ebooks, but he says that whenever his father's eyes were on him, he became uncomfortably aware of all his deformities.
Yeah. And yeah, that's
It's a great detail for how self-conscious and
Yeah.
inadequate he feels.
Yeah. And that's something that happens if you grow up with a neglectful father or an abusive parent of any kind. You're hyper aware of yourself and of the ways that you would be considered a failure in that parent's eyes.
Oh, for sure.
Where were you looking at?
I don't have the page.
Page
when
611.
Oh,
He feels the
He's-
eyes.
He's like walking in and he's like aware of his waddling and his physical body.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is because he sort of forgets it sometimes until he's with his father and he's watched.
Yeah, he became uncomfortably aware of all those
Yeah.
deformities and shortcomings.
I wonder if that really feeds into how weird and how put off he is by the burnt men, because who are these people that would willingly deform themselves
Oh, yeah.
and make themselves in the eyes of not the mountain clan or not the burned men, that like they're lesser.
Yeah.
You know,
Timon
and they
taking his
willingly
own eye
like
out.
in that clan, in the burned men, that's like,
Yeah.
who can like do the craziest thing to themselves.
Blackstar says, I love that Tywin instantly knows how to deal with the Klansmen, and I really do love that, and I want to comment on it, because I think in the show he's a little bit more, I wouldn't say, he's a little bit more dismissive, but I think that's a little harsh to say.
No, I know, I picked up on that.
Yeah, he's less,
He's a little more condescending.
yeah, he's more condescending outwardly in the show. I'm sure Book Tywin feels the same attitudes, but he's more cunning in a way that he's flattering them. He says, he rises to talk to them. Even in the West, we know the prowess of the warrior clans of the Mountains of the Moon. And also that leads to maybe the funniest line.
Yeah, I
what
love
brings
this.
you down from the strongholds, my lord? Horses, said
Horses.
Shaga.
And
Shaga
then,
is
like,
hilarious.
A promise of silk and steel. I really like that description. Is that what Tyrion says?
No, that's what Timett says was promised to them.
Yeah, I like the description of silk and steel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like
But-
that he also doesn't flinch at all when they bust in and throw this other guy across the room, and Kevin is perturbed, and Tywin just is so
Cool.
very cool.
Yep. What's
Yeah.
up?
But yeah, like Tywin's ease dealing with the mountain men just makes me think like Tyrion is so similar to him.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
that's where he gets it from.
It is said the men of the mountain clans are warriors without fear, and then he just kind of, plays on that. And he says, you don't need to join us, the men of the Winterlands. And I think he uses the Winterlands because it's language that the mountain
They're
clansmen
familiar
can
with, yeah.
relate to. I don't think he would use the Winterlands with any of his own.
No.
men. He would just say
No.
those Northerners. But yes,
Yeah.
the men of the Winterlands are made of iron and ice, and even my boldest knights fear to face them.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tyrion's like, oh, definitely done.
Yeah.
Like he can respect that
Yeah.
power play from Tywin.
Is it does Tyrion introduce Tywin as Tywin, son of Tytos? Because I thought that was interesting.
I know he does in the show.
Because Tywin's not a big fan of his dad. Tywin's got daddy issues.
Yeah, so that would be
Yeah.
Tyrion kind of taking a dig at
Oh,
Tywin.
yeah, for sure.
Tywin was probably
would
pissed.
not want to be Tywin, son of Tytos. Tytos almost like destroyed House Lannister because he was such
So weak.
Yeah.
such a weak ruler, and basically Tywin is the one that made House Lannister like the force it is. Like,
He does say Tywin, son of Tytos.
yes, okay,
Yeah,
so it's
nice.
But and on the one hand, he's just complying with their customs.
for sure.
Sure, but he probably is also
he's
taking
like,
satisfaction in being
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
do
yeah.
that. He's like, I know that he's going to hate this.
Once and future hand of the king, like he gives him all the titles.
Yeah.
Tytos is someone who I think is another reason that Tywin has such an issue with Tyrion, and the way that Tyrion is always drunk and whoring around is that's what Tytos did.
Oh,
That-
interesting.
Oh yeah,
Didn't know that.
Tytos
Okay.
was just like all about earthly pleasures, not so much about ruling.
And yeah, just about pleasing everyone.
Yeah, just
Instead of-
being
Yeah.
everyone's buddy.
Oh, sure, my bannerman, I'll loan you money. Take your time. We also get in this chapter.
Secret
What?
Talking about secret. I like Tytos, the Renly of the West.
Yeah, Javier.
In these two chapters, we get updates about the Brotherhood, who
Yes.
Yeah.
are not yet the
Yeah.
Brotherhood.
We're checking in with Beric and
Yeah.
Ned
Beric
Stark's
and-
afterthoughts.
Rob doesn't exactly know what their names are in the last
Was it
chapter.
Edric, Derek.
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah. We hear that they were just smashed by Gregor Clegane and maybe dead, and this one we hear that they're still kind of being a nuisance to the Lannisters, so that's good news.
Yeah, that'll keep coming back until we finally get to meet them full force.
Your use of the word smashed makes me want to bring up something that I wrote down that's very interesting to me when Kevin, Tywin, and Tyrion are eating, and Tywin says, your brother has been covering himself with glory. He
Covering
smashed
himself.
the lords, Vance and Piper at the Golden Tooth, etc. And I literally wrote down, he covers himself with glory like Robert did during Robert's rebellion, and he smashed the lords like Robert's hammer.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's purposeful on Tywin's part, but I find the use of the language really interesting, that those are terms that as I was reading it, I was like, oh, Robert's Rebellion, Robert the Hammer, like smashing stuff. You used the word smash, and I was like, let's talk about the word smash.
Yeah.
And your comment reminds me that just in all these conversations with Tyrion, Tywin constantly says, your brother Jaime. Like, he's always comparing Tyrion to Jaime and
Yeah.
their relationship. And your brother Jaime would never have meekly submitted to capture at the hands of a woman. And I think that ends up just getting implanted in Tyrion's brain, because in his second chapter that we're going to look over in this reading, he thinks of my brother Jaime in those terms and, like, compares himself negatively to
Doesn't he
Jaime.
respond like, oh, we're different in many ways? You might have noticed he's
a bit
taller.
larger, yeah.
Yeah, basically, whenever that comparison is made, Tywin is comparing. Basically, Jaime is the paragon of what Tywin would want in a son,
Yeah.
and Tyrion, in so many ways, is not. But obviously, because of what is expected of lords' sons and what they need to do for the house, Tyrion not meeting that, it keeps Tywin from seeing his assets, his actual value.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So, Tywin's got these 3 kids, right? Cersei is married to the crown, so she's not inheriting Casterly Rock. But Jaime, as a sworn brother of the Kingsguard,
He
he can't inherit either.
Casterly Rock.
So that leaves Tyrion.
Right. But
But we
Tywin-
don't ever hear Tyrion referred to as Tywin's heir, right?
No, because Tywin doesn't want to give him Casterly
So
Rock.
who is
Well,
that
Tywin
Casterly Rock?
Tywin wants for Jaime to have it. He didn't want Jaime to be a Kingsguard.
No, he was
King
It
Aerys.
was this huge.
Because
No,
it
I
was
know.
Cersei's
Yeah, no,
idea,
I know that,
too.
but like
Yeah.
he is Kingsguard,
Right.
So like,
But
and
Tywin thinks he
Kingsguard
can
is
go around the rules.
like Kingsguard is you swear that for life.
They have
You
that
die.
But-
explicit conversation in the show where Tyrion assumes that that vow is going to be held up and says, well, I'm going to be your heir.
Yeah.
And Tywin's like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make Jaime resign from the King's.
Yeah.
Like he just figures he's Tywin and
Okay.
he can work around the rules.
Exactly. Tywin doesn't.
That's messed up, man.
Yeah, but he does not want Tyrion to have Casterly Rock.
We also get in this chapter Tyrion being filled in on everything, and again, in
yeah.
the nonchalant off, just he's taken a little bit aback when he finds out that Robert's dead,
Yeah.
and that Cersei will essentially be ruling. We almost get Tywin talking about the Baratheons, but Tyrion isn't filled in on that yet. But we know that Tywin, once he gets rid of the Stark annoyance, he wants to really deal with Stannis.
Yeah, that's
Is interesting.
Stannis is his main concern, and I think that comes up later as well in King's Landing. I think Cersei makes the same reference to the fact that Stannis is the one that they're worrying about. They don't think much of Robb because, as Tywin says, he's just a boy.
Yeah.
Then it's weird that for the Starks, the Lannisters are like the main. You know,
Yeah.
Their big
It's-
enemy. I apologize
Is it
for
Mad
this. No, I'm gonna make a sports reference, you guys.
Oh,
it's happening.
is it
if
OSU?
if the Lannisters are Michigan,
Wait,
Starks would be Michigan
why are we?
State.
I don't like this. I don't,
Because for Michigan State, Michigan is like the big rival.
Yeah.
But for us, we're like, okay, Michigan State, yeah, like they're a rival. But OSU,
Stannis.
Yeah.
I was
Stannis.
literally having this conversation with somebody else earlier this week.
Really?
Yeah, because I was talking to my friend who had tuned in for our Game of Thrones Clue, and I was talking about my PhD research and how I'm looking at U of M's program and how like all of you went to U of M, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, they went to U of M? I can't be friends with them." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
OSU.
She's
Which
like,
school?
"She's like, my parents went to Western Michigan," and then she explained to me like,
We don't.
we don't think about them at all.
There's
"Yeah,
Mad
I
Men.
literally had this conversation."
Yeah, I think we had an interaction on Twitter where I felt bad because someone was saying, "Oh, Michigan." I was like, "Oh, well, what are you from? Michigan State, Ohio State?" And they said Notre Dame. I was like, "Oh, yeah, right."
Oh yeah, that's
Sorry.
a rivalry. All right,
Like, I don't care about sports,
before
so.
we seem more arrogant, let's move on. Any last thoughts on
Yeah.
this Tyrion chapter? Oh,
Yeah, and you know what? I'm so glad Top 100 Movie Challenge just brought up the wolfling leaving his den to play among the lions.
that sounds like the cutest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's adorable.
Because I did some external research in a medieval bestiary earlier when I was writing my notes, because I find it really interesting to think about the presence of beasts and the presence of animals and the fact that they're referring to the Starks as wolves continually, and they refer to the Lannisters as lions, and everybody's sort of referred to by their animals.
And wait, what
Very
do you mean? Were you
interesting
in
to
a bestiary when you
No.
had this thought? Okay, never mind.
me. No.
She hangs out bestiary.
No. So a medieval bestiary is basically a big book that records information about animals, because medieval literature, there's a lot of animal presence. So you refer to a bestiary to figure out, like, okay, what animals, what do they mean, and what is their presence? So the term that goes with wolves is, if a wolf sees a man before the man sees the wolf, the man will lose his voice, which basically says, if I really like it because of something that's going to come up later in the books. So if a wolf sneaks up on a man
You gonna kill him?
and the man doesn't see him, the man's in trouble. But if the man sees him, the man can do something to negate him. And then the term for lions is, the lion is the king of beasts. And the information with the bestiary is that the roar of the lion makes all the other animals weak. And that just made me think of House Lannister's words, "Hear me roar."
Mm-hmm.
And I find it very interesting. I have some other bestiary notes for other chapters. But, like,
Cool.
it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, thanks for that
Yeah.
It's
perspective.
yeah.
Everyone's pumped up these series.
Yeah. If you look up medieval bestiary, you can find it. I think it's like bestiary.ca is just like, I think that's the one that I used.
That's cool.
Anything else on Tyrion?
Nope.
Sansa.
Guys, this chapter is hard.
Yeah.
Because it makes me really sad.
It's
Yeah.
rough stuff.
I mean, the Dany chapter is much harder in a much different way, but this chapter is very...
It just like is very heartbreaking because Barristan is just a really good guy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't deserve this.
Yeah.
Oh, he's probably better off.
It's worse later when Ned, like, damns Barristan, too, in his list of people who's, like, bastards. Like, Selmy's on that list. I was like, no, Ned.
This is a chapter where the character really feels like just eyes instead of like, this is not like a ton of internal development for Sansa.
It's mostly
But she's
There's a couple things that are worth noting.
For
Near
sure.
the end, yeah.
Near
But-
the end, for sure.
But it's mostly a look at Joffrey's transition to power. What?
Sorry. Thanks, Phoebe.
it's pretty great.
I'm enjoying being on book club.
Oh, hey, why is Sir Aaron Santigar so gloomy?
Gloomy Sir Aaron Santigar? That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm a little curious. You guys can talk about this chapter while I'm going to look up
You look up.
Aaron
Okay.
and see if there's a reason.
Oh, yeah, my poor baby Sansa.
He's probably standing next to people named Horror and Slobber. Those were great names.
I like that she prays at both the Sept and the Godswood. I think that's a nice note.
For both her parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also like insurance. You know, like, okay, if one of these is right, you know, I gotta make sure, just in case.
But it's nice because she's like, sometimes she prayed in the Godswood since the Starks kept the old gods. And you're like, okay, well, like, if she wasn't the Stark, she'd just be in the Sept.
Yeah.
I like when she goes into the hall. Joffrey's court has so few people in it.
Yeah, I had a question about this. Now, is this because I thought there would be more to pledge fealty, but is this because there are fewer flatterers to Robert, or is...
I think people bailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
Okay.
you know, well, what? She said there's usually...
Over 100.
Yeah.
Well, and we talked last week about how many people were there when Ned went in and said, oh, he's a bastard.
Yeah.
Like, it was packed. There were 1 million people there. And here, she's like, there's so many are missing. Where did they go?
No small folk or commoners. I think they maybe just didn't let those people
Yeah,
in.
I wondered if
Yeah.
Cersei had... If people
She
didn't
doesn't
show up,
give
or if she had kicked them out.
Fuck about small folk at all. They're not even real to her.
It's like a Lannister trait, really.
Seriously.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think that she maybe kicked people out.
Yeah.
I just think she's
Yeah.
like, we don't need to deal with this.
Yeah, don't let the
Oh,
riff
but
happen.
also in the announcement of people who need to come to the throne, basically 5 out of 7 kingdoms are considered to be in hot water right now. So everyone from there probably wouldn't want to be in King's Landing right
Yeah.
now.
Oh, because you got the North, the Reach, the Riverlands, Dorne, and the Eyrie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All in sort of
I want to
questionable states right
I
now.
want to know who Lord Bryce Caron of the Marches is, because like this whole paragraph when he's naming people that need to come swear fealty, I know most of them, but he's like the only one who I'm like, wait, who the fuck's that? Like,
Oh,
what?
when he's
Yeah, like everyone else, I'm like, oh yeah, Jason Mallister, he's like a River Lord.
Yeah.
Titus Blackwood, he's a River Lord. But who the fuck is Bryce?
Where are
Caron?
the marches?
The Marches are they're part of the Stormlands and they border Dorne. The Marcher Lords are historically lords from Westeros, because Dorne has always been kind of independent from the other regions. So the Marcher Lords would be the ones who defended the realm against Dornish invasions. Barrett Dondarrion is a Marcher Lord. The Dondarrion house is in that same region.
Oh
So-
man, she digs a knife in because she goes through these people and it's just like the Lord and his brothers, the Lord and his sons, and then she's like, Catelyn Stark, Robb Stark, Brandon Stark, Rickard Stark, Arya Stark, all of them,
Yeah.
every single one individually. You gotta come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No titles.
Hey, you know what I like is that on 6:19, a moment later, Lord Baelish entered through the tall doors in the rear, smiling. He chatted amiably Butterflies fluttered nervously in Sansa's stomach.
Oh, I wrote that down. And then she talks about fear. Those are butterflies of fear.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And I think that here, we're not meant to make that connection. I think it's like
I made that connection.
as he made his way to the front, new thought, butterflies flutter nervously in Sansa's stomach as she's like steeling herself to do this. But I think they're purposefully put there right next to each
show it me
other.
again.
Yeah, I shouldn't be afraid. Yeah,
I guess
I think it's George
I think
being...
I think the butterflies refer to Pycelle, Varys, and Littlefinger because it's put in the same paragraph.
Yeah.
I think that if the butterflies were supposed to be separate from all of them, he would have started a new paragraph there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's fair.
Like it's connected textually.
And I like how those three are given their like one-word summaries. Pycelle's asleep, Varys is making no sound, and Baelish is smiling.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what they do.
Smiling and him amiably chatting. Those do nothing to reassure her, though.
Since Frickin can't read yet, it's useless to summon him.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring this 2-year-old to court, 3-year-old to court.
Feral.
Wildcat.
Yeah.
Wild wolf.
Also, I love Janos Slint's entrance. It's like absurd. Oh god, where's the description?
621.
Her just
Okay.
equating ugliness
Yes.
with not being
Here
good.
we go.
Oh.
Sansa, just imagine like how he looks right now. It's really glorious. Sansa glimpsed motion from the corner of her eye as Janos Slint made his entrance. This time the muttering was louder and angrier. Proud lords whose houses went back thousands of years made way reluctantly for the balding, frog-faced commoner as he marched past. Golden scales had been sewn onto the black velvet of his doublet and rang together softly with each step. His cloak was checked black and gold satin. 2 ugly boys who must have been his sons went before him, struggling with the weight of a heavy metal shield as tall as they were. For his sigil he'd taken a bloody spear, gold on a night black field. Like, it's like everyone else is just like buckling down because shit's getting serious and they're transferring. And then Janos Slint's like, guys, I'm like a real person now. And he's gonna have this little parade of Janos Slint and no one cares. And he's such like a nouveau riche
Yeah, he's
guy.
so
I want
new
somebody
money.
to cosplay this.
Yes.
This Janos Slint.
Dude, taking the bloody spear as your sigil is in such poor taste.
Yeah,
You
Most
bastard.
definitely.
But yeah, he's promised Harrenhal, and
I like the description earlier in the chat that Harrenhal is the Christmas present that like nobody wants, or it's like the
Yeah.
white elephant.
Yeah.
White elephant gift of the year.
Yes, it's the fruitcake of Westeros.
I like Top 100
Fruitcake's
Movie
pretty
Challenge says that his entrance is even better because he did all this to be seen, and there aren't even people there to like see it.
Yeah.
No one
so
even
good.
sees it.
yeah, there's like a
happen.
dozen people being like, dude, just
Like, stop, man. It's not the time. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, and then we get firing Barristan Selmy.
yeah, and
but
it's the worst.
It is the worst, but Selmy goes out like such a G.
Yeah.
At first he's like, wait a minute, what's going on with my burden? And then when she just straight up gets rid of him, and fucking, of course, Janos Slint is there to be like, oh, she's saying she's firing you.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, you're giving me a hall to die in and men to bury me.
Yeah.
I am a knight, I shall die a knight. And then he fucking just calls out Jaime as the false knight.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Kingslayer straight to his sister's face. And then
Everybody in the hall.
Yeah.
All 12 of them.
yeah.
But I love when he finally draws his sword. That's the best
Yes.
moment of all
Yeah.
this. Sansa heard someone gasp. Sir Boros and Sir Meryn moved forward to confront him, but Sir Barristan froze them in place with a look that dripped contempt. Have no fear, sirs. Your king is safe. No thanks to you. Even now, I could cut through the 5 of you as easy as a dagger cuts cheese. If you would serve under the Kingslayer, not a one of you is fit to wear the white. He flung his sword at the foot of the Iron Throne. Here, boy, melt it down and add it to the others if you like. It'll do you more good than the swords in the hands of these 5. Perhaps Lord Stannis will chance to sit on it when he takes your throne. Mic drop, sell me out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but then my favorite part is Joffrey being like, I want him seized, I want him questioned. And then it's like silent and no one does anything. And then
Yeah.
after a minute, Janice is like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go, it's my job now. I'm gonna go take care of that.
Is that a real order? Okay.
Yeah, right?
He's like, oh shit,
is it
that's me,
hypothetical?
that's my
Yeah.
cue.
And later we hear that the 2 gold cloaks who go after him just end up killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is it? Is it Jorah or Oh no, it's someone in Westeros who's like, oh, it's Gior.
Yeah,
Who's-
that's right.
Who's like, why would they send 2 gold cloaks? Because
Barristan Selmy.
apparently the gold cloaks are not
No.
a well-respected force.
Well, because if you're
Just
a well-respected
swords, more or less?
knight or fighter, you're gonna be in the Kingsguard.
Yeah, or I mean that's a
know?
pretty like exclusive club, but I get the feeling the gold cloaks aren't knights. They're probably trained men.
What
Because
I
I don't
was
think
like-
Jaina Slint was a knight.
They should have. It's like they should have sent some of the Kingsguard to go get him, but they didn't because they know he would have just like killed them, and they didn't
Yeah.
have anybody
No
to
one
kill
could
the
get him.
Kingsguard.
Yeah, they're like, oh, Joffrey wants it. Just send
It's
some
just
people who can
to
die.
make Joffrey forget about it for a little
I
bit.
actually thought that Cersei's point is really interesting because he's like, only death can relieve the Lord Commander, only death can relieve the Kingsguard, and she's like, well, who's death?
That is a good point.
Yeah.
It's
I
definitely
also-
some legal loopholes
I
that you
mean,
can use to get around this.
It isn't a bad point to make that, like, what if you're in a position where all of your Kingsguard is old guys
All of
and
them,
they're
yeah.
they're just there because they still have to be? Like,
It's
would
not
you?
a bad point, yeah.
It's not a bad
Like
point.
Supreme Court justices.
I was gonna say, yeah. If the Kingsguard tool is their fighting ability and that starts to wane, or if you're a Supreme Court justice and your mind starts to go, you better retire.
Yeah, but I think that they're definitely making a mistake in the specific instance of Selmy. who
Yeah.
Did you watch that episode of The West Wing recently?
I was thinking about that doing a little bit.
Joel watches every episode of The West Wing every
love The
night
West
before he goes
love
to
The
bed.
So it's different from the show. The first half, I think, of Barristan's dismissal, and it was what I really keyed into, because it's a badass moment when he goes out the way he does. But
He takes the long way out even after all that.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, it says like after the part I just read, it's like he took the long way out.
Yeah.
It's like,
They parked
fuck
to
it.
let him pass.
He's probably just flipping everyone the bird while he backs out of it.
How long? He takes the long way out and nobody's talking.
Yeah.
Like, how
And
long
then
does
it's
that
not,
take?
his
it's not
steps are
until he
ringing.
leaves that Joffrey's like, he called me boy.
Yeah, we're not doing it in his presence for sure.
Yeah.
But so it was before Jamie's mentioned that I thought was interesting, because what the criticism that he's hearing, he takes in and thinks about for a second, thinking maybe in like disbelief and denial. Have I done a bad job? Is this really true? But then it's when Jamie's mentioned and he sees why this move is being made that he reacts angrily. But before that, I think he does reflect that I'm serving 3 kings at this
kings.
point, and
All of them dead.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But this would, like, technically since he served Joffrey for like a day, so he served 4 kings.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Jaehaerys,
Put that on the
Aerys,
resume.
Robert.
Oh yeah, and
like, a day
Javier
of
makes, a good,
Joffrey.
Javier makes a good point. The way he leaves is because he's not leaving King's Landing just yet. He's going to the White Tower to write in the White Book, which we'll see later on.
Good point.
What's
Yeah.
the white book, guys?
Yeah, what's
It's
the White Book?
it's in the show. It's the
It's like the record of
What's the White Book?
the Kingsguard.
people in the Kingsguard.
Oh,
And all
does
their
Jamie look at
deeds.
it at some point?
He does.
Yeah.
And says,
and
"Oh,
his
you
entry is
killed the
just
king."
like, yeah,
Oh.
and he's sad.
Clarence,
And then he has to write his entry with his
Clarence
with
says,
his left hand.
when you type Barristan Selmy in Google, the first video is Barristan Selmy quits laying a box.
Oh gosh.
And yeah, the show does have some of it, but it doesn't have the full fucking
Yeah.
2 pages of badassery. There
Yeah.
What I
right
like
here.
too is we get Sansa after Barristan leaves, and it says that her heart goes out to him. And I'm just like, okay, Barristan Selmy's a true knight. Like, he's probably the only embodiment of what she would know a knight to be.
Yeah.
And then he just has to bail.
Was she or Jane the one who criticized him earlier, or just looked down on him for being old?
I think she looked down on like some 27-year-old
Barrack.
after me.
Oh yeah,
Very
Yeah, sorry.
Barristan
Yeah,
is
sorry.
22.
ancient.
I feel like they do talk about him being old, but I think that his like prowess is what still holds him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because Jane's like, oh, Barrack, I would know him, and Sansa's like,
Yeah.
he's
He's
so
old. Yeah.
So yeah, Sansa finally steps up and
Yeah.
asks for mercy for Ned, and the council is all like throwing words out different directions. Pycelle really wants to get rid of Ned, man. Pycelle's such a dick.
Yeah.
But I like that Varys is like, he's
Oh,
mostly
such sweet. Well, it's such sweet innocence.
wisdom oft comes from the mouths of babes.
Which that's what Ned said when Sansa talks about Joffrey's hair.
Yeah.
I bet Varys was just
Like
listening in.
pan
a good
to the
line.
left, and Varys is there and just hiding behind a curtain.
Sansa, such a babe.
I like so we have before she calls out we get the repetition of "I must be as strong as my lady mother."
Yeah.
And I know we've heard that at least once prior.
I think Cersei told her to be as strong
No,
as her lady
she
mother.
says it. I think it was in last week's readings where she talks about being gentle as the queen and strong as her lady mother, because we talked about it in last week's book club. And I'm just sort of wondering, how often are we going to get this repetition of being as strong as Cat? Particularly when we know that Cat's like terrified.
Yeah, she is terrified, but that's when you can prove your strength the most, you know?
But I really like that we get that repetition again.
Well, she kind of, like, this moment where she's negotiating with Joffrey and Cersei is similar to Cat having to negotiate with Walder Frey. You know, they just remind me of each other in those scenes.
Yeah. I think Sansa is smart in, she's not just appealing generally, she's doing it in a specific way. It's her own version of playing the game, and she's appealing directly to Joffrey. And I think it's important that she's doing it in public. People know that they're still betrothed, so he wants to keep up his Joffrey king mask a little bit, and he wants to appear gallant.
But, you know, she's talking about him, and Varys is like, oh, sweet innocence, and Pycelle's like, treason, and Joffrey's like, mother? Like, what do you think, Mom?
Yeah, he's still deferring to Cersei at this point. And it's just like how with Robb still deferring to Catelyn, and we know that in the future both of them will grow more independent and shirk off the suggestions of their mothers. So I like that those chapters are so close together.
Yeah.
Catelyn on 546 is
Catelyn?
when... No, you.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, thank you.
Catelyn on 546 is when Sansa is saying she had promised herself she would be a lady gentle as the queen and as strong as her mother, the Lady Catelyn. So, yeah, that's when she's talking to Cersei.
And then we got it again in this chapter.
And
Got it
she's
again.
wearing
I
the
might do
gown.
I might do a search in my ebooks at some point for that phrase, strong as my lady mother, and just see how many times it comes up.
And yeah, she's wearing Chelsea.
Yeah, she's wearing the gown that Arya ruined, and she dyed it black.
Yes, 'cause she knows how to die.
The dress that Cersei gave her.
Yes, the
The
dress that Cersei gave her.
She takes special care to make herself beautiful.
This
Playing
was
her role.
a pretty short chapter. I think it was more about more of an insight into that Selmy incident than it was about Sansa.
When we get here to, you know, please be the king, I know you are good and kind and noble. She's still believing that
She's
Joffrey is
projecting.
good,
Yeah.
and like that's her undoing for sure.
Yeah.
And we're also getting, you know, this is another chapter where before the next chapter, we have a long gap without Eddard chapters where we don't know kind of what's happening with him. And I like how the other chapters kind of peppering in fantastical stories about what could have happened. So on a first read, this would be critical to me because I would say, oh, you know, maybe with Sansa's appeal, he could still live.
Yeah.
Also, I think it should be pointed out that Cersei. So, okay, obviously, we all know what happens to Ned.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, Ned
Spoiler,
dies.
we all know. It's important to point
Dumbledore
out
dies.
that it's all Joffrey's fault. Cersei doesn't want Ned.
It might also
Yeah.
be Littlefinger's fault.
Well, yeah.
But yes, primarily
But
Joffrey's
Cersei
fault.
does not want Ned dead. She,
Yeah.
like, again, Cersei's not really smart, but she knows that it's dumb to have Ned killed because that's a horrible move strategically. But that's worth pointing out for later because
Yeah.
she genuinely wants to just send Ned to the wall.
She says, if Lord Eddard were to confess his crime, we would know he had repented his folly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Ned 15.
Good call.
Ned
Eddard
15.
15. Whoops.
Edard.
Eddard.
Edard.
I'm gonna refill my water bottles, okay?
Yeah.
That's
Will you do me too? Thanks, bro.
Oh no,
I still
no
got water.
hiccups.
Oh.
Uh-oh. All right, moving on to Eddard 15. In this chapter, Eddard is on some
he's high.
poopy straw.
He's out of it.
He is, yeah, he is in a place where he cannot see anything but darkness.
He's been imprisoned. His leg is still broken. They're feeding him milk
Water
and poppy.
only.
And,
And,
yeah,
and
no
milk
food.
and poppy.
No food.
No food, no milk of the poppy.
I thought he still had milk of poppy.
I don't think so. I think at the very end of the chapter.
No, because when he's having his like high dreams, I thought it was because he was still.
I think that's just
No.
from fever.
Oh.
Yeah,
of
and
infection.
from not being able to
Oh yeah, just water.
tell where he is
Yeah.
between waking and dreaming.
Because the dark is absolute.
Yeah,
Eric-
it's an offer that Varys makes of
Eric,
milk of the poppy.
Sansa doesn't believe that they're lies. She's still ascribing to all of the romantic stories of princes and knights that are good and who will do good things. She doesn't understand the game.
But she also does know, on some level, that he's not this knight from her songs. Because remember earlier she was like, he would kill the animal. Or what was it? In her dream, Joffrey would kill an animal.
Yeah, she knew that Joffrey would want to hunt stag, I think, that appeared in...
Or a hare? I don't know.
But I
I think the point I'm trying to make is I think she does know on some level, but is continuing to lie to herself, maybe as a measure of
she
self-preservation.
She hasn't seen. Like, she's seen him be a little bit of a whiny shit, but she
Yeah.
hasn't seen him be truly brutal yet. And so she's still choosing to believe that he's not.
Yeah, she has enough evidence to the contrary that she can still try and believe
Thank you.
that he's okay.
Here you go.
All right, so in this chapter, Eddard is, chilling in a cell. He thinks of the tourney at Harrenhal. Is this the first time this is brought up?
The day all the smiles died.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. The moment when all the smiles
I
died.
don't. That might be the first time he's brought it up. It's been brought up.
It has been brought up. I'm sorry. It's so hard for me to keep track of
Yeah.
what's happened and what hasn't.
Well, I like to, he brings up Cersei's when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die, and he acknowledges he played and lost, and his men are dead.
Yeah.
I like how his first thought, even though he did badly, his first thoughts are about his men and his daughters.
Yeah,
Because he lost for them and they paid.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's classic Ned.
I also like on the first page how Ned, the language is almost as if Ned is a Dothraki Khale's blood rider, because the king dies, Ned Stark thought, and the hand is buried.
Yeah, I love that.
I hadn't thought about that.
And finally, Ned is damning Littlefinger first in his list of people he's
Yeah.
pissed at.
Finally.
Finally, a little too late there,
It
Ned.
only took this.
Yeah. Before he was always thinking to himself how much he Littlefinger isn't the most trustworthy, but that Varys, there's something about Varys I just hate.
Yeah.
And finally, and also this makes him finally blame himself. So again, a little too late for you, Ned. But when he slept, he dreamed dark, disturbing dreams of blood and broken promises. Lyanna, always a factor in Ned, especially when he's dreaming.
Now, broken promises I had a question about.
What's up?
What promise did he make to her, and what promise did he break? Yeah.
That's a good
I'm
question.
thinking maybe that's his broken promise to Robert, because he doesn't tell Robert about the bastards.
Was
Where-
that
where are
an
you
implicit
looking
or
at-
an explicit promise?
That's-
Implicit. I think it's more implicit.
Oh. I see.
I was thinking about these dreams because, like I said, I had my medieval literature class earlier this week and we were talking about dreams. And I think that all of these dreams are somnium naturale. I don't think that they're prophetic. I think he's having dreams, fever dreams, that are due to an imbalance in his physical capacity to live. I don't think that these are prophetic.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he probably doesn't have enough blood in him
Yeah.
after.
And it seems like on page
Don't eat
630, when that vision,
Don't eat that.
Lucy!
when that vision of Robert transforms into Littlefinger, and both of them are chastising Ned about how badly he's done things. I feel like he's wrestling with his guilt right now. And the theme, it's already happening on 630, that he's thinking about, can I give up my honor to protect my children?
Yes, he's already thinking
Lucy
about
could distract me, everybody.
When you eat Pride Stark, will honor shield your children. And yeah, that's going to be his final conflict in his
Yeah.
life is, do I maintain honor and the truth of Joffrey's heritage, or do I protect my children? Oh, and we finally reveal why blue winter roses are so associated with Jon and his mother. It's because that's the favor?
Yeah,
it was
the
a crown
crown.
of blue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
I was just trying to
gives
think of the
Lyanna.
name of it.
Yeah.
No, favor is something the woman would
the
give
lady,
to the knight.
It's the
It's like a handkerchief, right?
it's the crowning the Queen of Beauty.
Yeah.
Or
The Queen of Love and
Love.
The
Beauty.
honor,
Whatever.
if you will. But that's what Rhaegar gives to Lyanna and what really kicks
Lucy's
everything
trying
off.
to-
Yeah,
Usurp
and
the throne.
everyone's like, oh. I kind of think, and we can talk about this more once we get into like prophecy shit, like the dragon has 3 heads and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think Elia Martell was like in on all of it and didn't care.
Oh, as far as
Lyanna
we
goes.
never hear about her reaction to everything. We never hear about her being aghast or being depressed that Rhaegar did that for Lyanna. And yeah, we do know that the Dornish are a little bit more.
Well, because it's pointed out
freewheeling.
specifically that Elia Martell was like a sickly woman and almost died giving birth to Rhaegar's kids, and so I bet she was aware of this prophecy that the dragon has to. Again, we can get into more of this later, but I bet she was like, "You need to have another kid."
That's yeah.
I don't know much about her. That's interesting.
Is it
I feel like
in
she's kind of a cipher.
this
as far as
section
the
of
story
reading,
is.
or is it in another section of reading where it's Dany chapters and they're talking about like Targaryen marriages? Is that in this book?
It's not in this reading.
Okay.
Yeah. Each man has a role to play. That's part of Varys's ethos. Master whispers must be sly and obsequious and without scruple. And this whole conversation between Varys and Ned is some of my favorite back and forth in the book. Ned being, "Can you free me from this pit? I could, but will I? No."
Yeah.
And Conleth Hill's, I can't read this without Conleth Hill's delivery not in my
Yeah.
mind. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
And so Varys is claiming that he serves peace and he serves the realm. And again,
Still not sure about
we're
that.
still not sure
Yeah,
about
I
that.
can see how in the books, knowing the longer conversation that is truncated in the show between Illyrio and Varys, how this is Varys saying what Ned needs to hear in order for Ned to make the right choice, the choice that he wants. But I did have a question. If this is aimed at a possible making the realm ready for the Targaryens later,
Yeah.
what does this achieve? Is it delaying the conflict? Because I thought maybe chaos within the realm and having the Lion and the Wolf come into conflict sooner would be better.
No, he is. Oh, yeah, this is delaying because he wants Ned to survive here. He's
Right.
talking Ned into.
Stannis is those. The Baratheons are still a problem.
Yeah.
So would it not? I mean, if that's already
What,
happening,
in
would it
terms
not
of
be
helping
better?
Ned escape?
No, just in terms of having
Setting up for Dany to come in.
Overall, why is it important that Ned stays alive as opposed to having just Westeros be a mess?
Because Dany's not ready yet, and he knows that Dany isn't ready to come over yet.
Right,
And
but won't
maybe-
Stannis and the Lannisters already be coming into conflict?
Sure, but there's nothing he can do right now to affect that. He can affect Lannister-Stark conflict, and if that breaks open, as it will when Joffrey takes it in him to lop off Ned's head.
Does it have something to do with making sure that there's going to be a peace between a Targaryen throne and the North?
I don't
Like
know.
keeping Ned alive, keeping the Starks sort of secure in the North.
Maybe. I
Keeping
don't
somebody
think.
up there who's strong and like knows it.
I don't think Dany would ever accept a partial realm. She would never acquiesce to the idea of the Starks being kings in the North while she takes the South.
Right, but Ned doesn't want to be a king. Like if Ned's kept alive,
Oh, I
then
see.
he'll just be
Yeah.
a warden in the North.
Sure. Maybe, yeah. Maybe Varys. He is awfully sympathetic to the Starks throughout this. Like during Sansa's chapter, as we saw, he was really on her side most of the time. And here he's being, we think, sincere to Ned in what he's talking about. So yeah, maybe he thinks that with the Starks fine in the North, that they'll
Be okay with Daenerys.
Maybe.
All that.
Yeah.
Well,
and I don't know if they
ultimately-
would be.
Yeah.
Maybe they would.
Or Targaryens, I should say more broadly.
They'd probably be better with Daenerys on the throne than Joffrey and Cersei.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I
So-
just wonder how much he'd been thinking about the Baratheons back when he was talking with Illyrio, and what he's thinking about them now.
Also, this is true. Javier, it's hard to get into that because it's so book
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah.
Danny isn't necessarily the
The end
game
goal.
What?
for.
Yeah. So we all
what?
stopped talking about it.
So that
Varys
stuff
and
comes
Illyrio.
so late
That's why I said
that like we don't
Targaryen.
get any hint of it now. And from what I have gathered, isn't that even a questionable that character that is being mentioned in the chat, and that theory isn't there a theory that that's a fake?
Yeah.
Yes.
But that doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't impact Varys and Illyrio's plans to use him.
Jackson gives us a good point that Ned is predictable, so perhaps Varys wants someone
Who's predictable
who's easy to
to-
manipulate, or like isn't a wild card.
Yeah. Jackson
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Page. Okay. Anything? Oh yeah. I mean, Varys really drives home, and your daughter's life, my lord. How precious is that?
Yeah.
Really driving home, and he knows Ned enough to relate it to Rhaenys and the Targaryen children, because
I like-
obviously that's Ned. Ned has a lot of.
Yeah,
guilt
he's
over
so
that.
smart to connect those.
I like Varys's description of honesty and honor, and I think that Varys saying that like perhaps that's why, I know so few honorable men. I think that that's George telling us like this is why everybody's messed up, because like if people are honorable in these books, they would all be dead.
Yeah, and this is. Wait, is this the last Ned chapter?
I didn't want to say it, but it is.
This is the last Ned chapter.
Yeah.
Oh man, and it's just full of Varys being like, you do, like he says earlier,
You're
you
a
realize
dead
you're a
man.
dead man.
You're a dead
and then
man.
he talks it back so that the reader might be like, oh, okay, that was like a threat, Varys saying that, and now that Ned agrees to this plan that he'll be okay. But no, man, this is it for
Is
Yeah.
Varys saying that he's the most devious man in Westeros?
Oh, when he calls
wondered
Littlefinger
about
the
that.
second? Yeah,
Yeah.
because he says, I feed him choice whispers sufficient so he thinks I am his. But really, I'm the most devious man in the Seven Kingdoms. And he's probably right. Like, Littlefinger's
Yeah.
doing his own game, but I think Varys knows more. The show makes that clear. Or the show takes that side, anyway.
Varys has like a broader vision than
Yes.
Littlefinger does.
Littlefinger's
Their goals are
mission is very
so
personal.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
And-
I also like Varys's description of Stannis as a truly just man, because that's markedly different from an honorable and honest man.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
I think that's important to.
Black Star making a good point. This is Spoilerville. We should talk on Reddit. I have totally neglected our subreddit, but if you want to jump on there, I will join you on reddit.com/r/practicalfolks. It is a subreddit devoted to our channel and the things we do, but also a large chunk of it is for this book club. So whether or not you have a Reddit account, head on over there for some more in-depth
Yeah,
discussion about the
let's-
readings we do.
let's talk on Reddit.
Caitlin posts on there all the time.
Periodically.
Last thing I want to point out is Varys saying, why is it always the innocents who suffer most when you High Lords play your Game of Thrones? And that could be a thesis for this series.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, that really is a big part of all of this.
Well, that's like in interviews, George R. R. Martin has said that this series really is about how war trickles down to the lower classes and affects the small folk the most.
Trickle down.
And that
economics.
Warfare
And that most fantasy stories don't include
doesn't
that.
even take that into consideration. Like, what's the aftermath of like the gallant hero killing the evil like king? And it's like, yeah, it's just like that stuff can't happen in a bubble. Yeah.
And that, I think, explains that inclusion of Tyrion's aspect of that personality. Like, Tyrion's just a character in one of those many other fantasy series where the
Yeah,
high
so
people
that's-
don't think of the
that's-
common folk.
I think that relates a lot to medieval romances, because in a medieval romance we follow our hero or our protagonist most often, and they're generally it's either like the protagonist and the lords that they're related to, or like if it's a lesser person, it's when they're in disguise or whatnot. But we don't generally get a lot of conversation about what else is happening.
Yeah.
So right now I'm reading Havelock the Dane, which is a 12th century romance, and we actually get the title character Havelock is a prince. He's Kingsblood, and he sort of a usurper's like, oh, kill this guy, and so this fisherman's like, all right, I'll kill this kid if you grant me my freedom. And then he realizes, oh, Havelock is actually royal. Like, we'll just hide you and I'll tell him that I killed you. And he goes and he tells him that he killed him, and the usurper's like, well, I'm not going to free you. And that's a great way of saying, like, okay, tying this moment, the small folk suffer, to a trope that is there in medieval literature as well.
Yeah. I also
I've been doing a lot of homework this week, sorry guys.
I also think, and maybe you can confirm too, that isn't it a trope in literature like that higher class people are always good looking, and it's like where someone is like maybe in disguise. It's like, oh, but I know they might be like a princess because they're very beautiful.
Yeah. So
someone like Tyrion is just like
beauty. Yeah, beauty is very important for the hero or the protagonist, and it will be brought up repeatedly for characters that it's really important. Another 12th century romance, King Horn. King Horn is like the most beautiful man ever, and it's always brought up. And it, whenever he's in disguise, like disguise is very important in medieval romances, just like it is here with Varys. Like when you're in disguise and you're not recognized, like, ooh, what's going to happen?
All right, we got 4 more chapters, so let's move on to...
I had one stray thought.
Okay.
Varys confirmed for Ned that him going to Cersei with his mercy, saying, here's what I know, is what killed Robert. Though Cersei would have done it eventually anyway.
Yeah, and Ned feeling real guilty about
Yep.
that. Ooh, Cersei mercy.
mercy.
I know, Paige, Caitlin definitely makes me feel like I want to go back to college.
Or you can just like talk to me.
All right. Yeah, I love having... Oh, you're right, Javier. Varys did make a name for himself in Essos. I love having Javier Garcia in the chat. He knows a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat
Varys
said
was
that
in
he's
a
our
mummer.
official
It's true.
fact checker.
He was what?
Our fact checker.
Our fact checker.
Yeah, you can be master of lore for Game of Thrones book club.
Great.
We
I
bestow
like it.
this honor upon you, Javier.
Okay, so Kat, I like this chapter. It gives us
Yeah.
Kat's struggle with her duty, her duty as a Stark versus her duty as a Tully, and that works out great with the Tully words, which are family, duty, honor, and they're here on this mug, which is a Tully mug that's on our table for some reason, and it's, those are the Tully words, family, duty, honor, but she's not a Tully anymore. So where's her?
Well, she calls herself Catelyn Tully. You must be as fierce and hard as the North, Catelyn Tully. But she does say, you must be a Stark for true now, like your son. So.
So I like that pull between the two. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, at the top of this chapter, you have all the fear really driven home for Catelyn. She feared for her Lord Father. She feared for her brother. She feared for Ned. That repetition
And the
just
girls.
shows.
And her sons.
Yeah, just shows her mindset, and it's gonna be her mindset for the rest of the series. Hey, Sarah, cool. Thanks for coming back.
Nice.
So is this?
This is the chapter with Walder Frey
Oh boy.
Yeah.
at the twins.
But before,
I was gonna say, we'll get to him in a minute, but I love him because he's so transparently self-interested and blunt and
It is
gross.
nice to have somebody who's honest about what they're doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But before we get Walder Frey, we get Theon being just.
Theon being Theon.
He's like, there are a dozen scouts who won't be reporting back to Lord Tywin anytime soon.
Yeah.
Or ever.
Also,
Just
okay,
adding that. Make sure you get the joke in,
You
Theon.
ready? I love this lot.
What?
Theon. Oh wait. Sorry. Sir Brendan has already seen to it, my lady, Theon replied with a cocky smile. A few more blackbirds and we should have enough to bake a pie.
I'll save you their feathers for a hat.
Yeah, all right, guys.
Yeah.
I'm more
Love
like
me.
I like the pie part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like, just because it's different from the show and the Blackfish has already been awesome, but his role now, it's great. Catelyn has someone that is a natural ally to her because of family, but also shares her point of view, so she's not so isolated.
Oh, the Blackfish.
Yeah, I'm interested to see
love that
when
he's
he
around.
parts from them. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
he's
great.
cool.
Like, he's experienced and he can back up Catelyn.
And he keeps like just going out. He's part of like that vanguard, or I guess the outriders. The scouting. Oh God, Rob, you're so meek.
Okay, this is where this is calling back to the conversation we had about Ned. On 641, they were talking about how to cross, and Rob asks, what would father do? And she said, find a way across, whatever it took. I don't know that that's the case. I don't think he would see Walder Frey not obeying his sworn vows as an affront, and he wouldn't be ready to concede more things. Honor should be enough.
I don't think he'd play the game here.
No.
Step out.
Yeah, I wonder if Ned would even try to cross.
I feel like he'd like
just hang out at Moat Cailin and defend.
I don't know.
It's tough because
it's hard to
they have to
say.
cross somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, would he have just taken his forces to the twins and been like, I'm gonna kill you guys if you don't fucking stand up and do what you have to do as your Lord's Bannerman?
I think that's what he would do, but then I think he'd also be smart enough to realize that they would not be able to take it, and Tywin would be coming.
I don't know.
So I don't see him. I love that Catelyn goes in this conversation. I don't
Yeah.
see him having the same skills of negotiation.
I kind of almost want to get the whiteboard and draw where Rob is in relation to where Tywin is, and like what is happening, like what they're arguing about.
Yeah.
Because I think it can get confusing if you're not like referencing the map, or if you're not familiar with Westeros.
Yeah.
I'm a little
Like,
confused because how
why-
is Tywin gonna like come up behind them if they have to get across the river anyway?
Okay, I'm gonna get the whiteboard.
Okay,
Yeah,
So
well,
now there are two.
We'll find something to talk about.
Yeah, no,
What do you wanna talk about?
I want to talk about the description of the twins, because we have these two towers on either side of the river and a
Yes.
bridge between them. And personally, like, that's, as much as the phrase suck, right? I love the description of the twins because I do medieval reenactment, and that two towers with a bridge between them is actually the device for my household. Like the warband that I fight with, the household that I'm a part of, it's two towers and a bridge in the center. Like that's our device for our household.
Wait,
So
what do you
when
mean your device?
the heraldry of my household. So like the
Okay.
sigil. The
Okay.
sigil of my
Got it.
warband that I'm a part of
Okay.
looks like the twins.
Okay.
So it just like makes me feel cozy. I just like wrote some little hearts and stuff. I'm like,
This has
drawing.
been pointed out before, and maybe this is. I think it's funny. I don't know if this was intentional, but
Wow.
the sigil of House Frey is a double crossing.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like the two, it's the twins. It's
Yeah.
because he double crosses.
Oh, I can
Yeah,
also
that's pretty good.
share since the
I like it.
laptop blocks it, but I'm wearing my cool Sansa Queen in the North direwolf
All right.
shirt that I got from the HBO store.
So let's see. Okay, what can we move on to? I'm gonna try and like draw a quick map
Okay.
so that we can
Well,
talk about.
We could talk about
What's
the
happening in this chapter.
Lord Frey.
Yeah, we can just talk
Yes,
about it as,
you
a,
can
as
talk
a
about
person.
Walder.
So
Frey.
I really like Kat's description to expect nothing of Walder Frey and you will never be surprised. I don't know what page it's on because, like I said, I got this fun little ebook. I'm so sorry. Maybe I'll
we're
just,
in
like,
the-
look for,
yeah,
look at
yeah.
James's copy. I really like that description, but that makes what's to come all the more upsetting because she's saying here, just expect him to do nothing, and he's not going to do anything. So you won't be like it won't surprise you because he's not going to do anything. But if for show watchers or book readers, we know what Walder Frey does.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay, so I'm gonna try,
Upsetting.
and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm imagining this completely wrong. But let's say, okay.
now I wanna
We do
find
get
that
some more
shit.
background about Lord Frey and the rift between the House Frey and the Tullys.
Mm-hmm.
That he
Okay.
is. There's a lot that's personal besides political going on.
So I'm drawing a map of like what Rob is trying to figure out because it's hard to visualize.
Okay, cool.
So let's see if
Are you certain? And
I'm pretty sure because
I'm
it makes sense. Okay, so Tywin,
Should I move? Can you get through?
if you can even see it, Tywin and his forces are coming up from that side because Casterly Rock is on the west. So he's coming up. That's why he's saying they can come attack me from behind. If
Okay.
if they take too long, Tywin can like scoop up.
But where is he trying to get to? How
Rob
can...
is trying to cross and go down this
To
way.
river,
He
is
wants
river
to-
run over here?
Yes, he just
Okay.
he
I
wants
thought
to get
River
the
Run was to
river
the west.
between them
Got it.
because he knows this is the twins are the only way to cross.
So when he
There.
splits his forces, he's doing it here.
So so Roose and his forces are just like going straight down to Tywin.
Got it.
And so this is why they're like, we can't just sit here. Because Tywin's gonna just swing up and around and come get us.
I guess I had a hard time with that because visually I didn't think about the twins being on a river that was going sort of north-south. I always
Yes.
thought of it east-west, and so it didn't make sense to me for like Tywin to be coming from the north.
And I kind of wondered how he was. So how did Jaime's army, who's over laying siege to River Run, get there if not the twins? What crossing would he have used?
I feel like
That's-
Javier is gonna jump in.
that's
and
farther
tell us
south.
how wrong
Yeah,
we are about
Javier,
stuff.
please tell us
so
about
there's
the
probably a
map.
crossing farther
you know what?
south that is inaccessible to Robb because Tywin's down there, and they would meet sooner before he could cross.
Or do I have it
River's down
flipped
here.
around? Okay, I just have it flipped around, I think.
But Casterly Rock's over here.
Yeah.
Or maybe by this point, Tywin's army has gone far enough east that he'd be coming from that direction because he's been just
Which
wrecking
side
shit.
is Rob supposed to be on? Is he supposed to be on this side?
I think so.
No, because Tywin is like by the King's Road, remember? They're like camping out. They're going up and down the King's Road because they're at the end of the crossroads and stuff.
Oh,
So I just
right.
have it flipped around, so my
Okay.
bad. Just take this and reverse it because the King's Road
Back it up.
is over here.
There's a crossing near Derry.
Yeah, the trident right here.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, so just take this
Tywin's coming
and
up
just
here.
flip it
Okay.
because Tywin is currently on the side with the King's Road
Yes.
Tywin's
and the
over
end of the
here.
crossroads.
Tywin is east of the Green Fork.
Yes.
Coming up the King's Road. So is Rob right now,
Yes.
trying to cross west across the Green Fork
Yes.
to go south and save River Run.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, how did Tywin get there? He came up.
Probably he might have taken the Gold Road.
Okay, but how? So there's some other
we're looking
crossing
at a
farther.
map on the
Yeah, we're
phone
looking
right
at a
now.
map,
There's some other crossing farther south that Tywin must have used to get over here to ford the river.
Oh, no, it's just the road.
Javier says that there's a crossing.
Yeah, but the river still. Still have to get over
Yeah,
the
there's a
river.
crossing.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just saying.
Oh. Yes. Okay. Let's.
But yeah, so that's
Anyway,
All right.
But I think it's important because if you don't visually understand what's going on,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
then as this stuff, because this series is so heavy in terms of tactics,
yeah.
that stuff gets boring to read if you can't visualize it. But if you can visualize it, it's so much more interesting.
Yeah, you should definitely be reading this series with a map at the ready. I'm not. Yeah, it's how you enjoy the series is being able to track the movement of people.
Yeah.
And one day I'd like to make a series on our channel where we like take one character and show on a map their journey throughout the
Oh,
series.
that'd be
I think that'd be
really
really
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
But
I would love that. Start with Cat.
well, it's easier because it ends early. Yep.
I like when Kat's talking about like making a deal with the phrase, and she says, "A lord must learn that sometimes words can accomplish what swords cannot." And I wrote down, who in A Song of Ice and Fire knows this?
What was that again?
Littlefinger.
A lord,
A lord must learn that sometimes words can accomplish what swords cannot. I think maybe Tyrion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Ned tries to believe it, but like to a fault, where he always goes to words.
He puts faith in words, certainly. Too much.
Oaths and honors.
Yeah.
Did we already talk about how Catelyn says he would never offer me any harm unless he saw some profit in
Some
it?
profit in
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Here's my question. And I don't like doing this too much because I think it's really hard to speculate. Like, what would Ned do? Because we don't really know him that well when you think about it. But,
Ned?
yeah, it's hard to say, like, in a situation like this because we haven't really gotten to see him in a situation like this. But would Ned have made a marriage pact like that using Robb.
I think he would using Robb, but not Arya. I don't think he would have made the marriage pact with
Arya.
with 2 of his children.
I could see that. But you think he would still use Robb like that?
He might.
It's just it's a thought I had while I was.
I don't know if he'd be able to stomach dealing with Walder Frey.
That's true.
The same way that Catelyn can.
I think Catelyn's the only one who could. I think if Robb went in there, he would be very insulted by Walder's behavior and not want to put up with it, thinking like, no, I'm Robb the Lord.
Yeah, knowing what Robb the Lord has to be, he couldn't stand for.
Well, that's a good point too, because as soon as the Lannisters turn out to be questionable, he's like, I'm gonna break off this marriage pact that I made. So that's a good point.
And also, I mean, Robb's kind of dumb here, and his men are sitting there in front of Stevrin talking shit about his dad. And, like, Catelyn's the only one who sees that Stevrin is not happy and that if they keep doing this, he's just going to turn around and they're not going to be able to cross. And that's when she offers to go.
Yeah.
But, yeah, before that, everyone's like, "No, you can't trust Walder. That guy's a shit." And, like, his son is sitting right there.
Heir is right there.
Earlier, there's a point in this chapter where Kat's talking about how you can't really trust him because he's the late Lord Frey.
Yeah,
but
it's
not
not
in
in front of his
his-
heir.
No,
Yeah. That's
Yeah, we're
For
coming into a situation
sure.
where you can see this already established dynamic of everyone treating the Freys badly, and that just plays into a bad dynamic because Walder Frey thinks of every insult. This person wouldn't foster my grandchildren. This person wouldn't take my daughter.
This person wouldn't come to my wedding.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he holds on to that, and he has this resentment, like I was saying earlier, against High Lords and the Tullys, and he doesn't think that they're any better than him, and, you know, maybe he's got a point. That,
I understand where he's coming from. He's got
For
this
sure.
piece of valuable real estate, and he's going to get from it what he wants, which is mostly respect.
he knows how to play the game, and he's upfront about playing it.
It's just his positioning is so weak that
Yeah.
he's kind of restricted by. And, yeah, we get insight into that in the way that he talks about Tywin. Oh, what a great man that one is. Him and his gold this and gold that, and lions here and lions there. But then he frames Tywin's strength in a way that makes himself look good when he's like, only 2 sons, and one of them's a twisted little monster. I'll match him son for son. Like, he's always like, oh, we'll match son for son.
Yeah.
I'll have more.
He says this so many times.
Yeah.
The way he thinks about strength is just in,
Numbers.
yeah.
The fruit of your loins.
Yep.
Can I just say I'm thinking about the most recent season and the scene that we get with Jaime and Walder.
Yeah.
And Walder's saying the same stuff to Jaime, like, yep, you and I, we both did this. We're both the same. Like, we're all like this. I'm just honest about it.
Oh, when that's
In
what Walder
season
says
6,
to
yeah,
Jaime.
yeah. He's like, Jaime, you and I, you and me both. And Jaime's like, I never. And
Yeah.
we're like, Jaime.
But yeah, there's just a ton of that. You know, your family is always pissed on me.
Don't deny it. It's true.
Yeah.
He's just so blunt and upfront. Like, there's no courtesy of any kind.
There's also a very rambly paragraph on 648 that I'm so wondering if there's any hidden clues in it.
I know, because it just was so
Does
long.
not stop talking.
No.
Yeah, but
and if he
this-
can find a way to talk about his wives and how much he knows how to have sex, he'll get to it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, like, what if Cray calls become important? Because my third wife was a Cray call. All the Cray call women are sluts. Well, never mind about that. Like, is that going to be important, George? Like, what's up with this paragraph, man?
Why do you do this to us?
Like, yeah, he's just talking about how his sons did in a tournament.
Well, on the same note, that very long description of Moat Cailin, it made me wonder, are we going to get a battle there eventually?
I sure hope so.
I know, it'd be
Wait,
awesome
that
to see
would
that
be
happen.
Sweet.
In an
Moat
earlier
Cailin.
Catelyn chapter when she arrives at Moat Cailin.
Yeah.
I think George just likes to paint, the locations that we're at and show that the North has this formidable defense in the form of Moat Cailin.
I still hope someone tries to take it.
Some
But we also
fool.
get, just because I'm
fool
seeing it on
dragons.
this... Sorry, what?
What?
No, what'd you say?
Oh, I said some fool's gonna try to take Moat Cailin. Like,
Yeah.
Patchface?
No.
I don't know what that is.
You'll get to
Drag-
Patchface.
you don't know about Patchface?
It's
I
scary.
don't know about no patch
Scary.
face.
He hasn't started
What do
Clash
I know
yet.
about? Oh, that's why I know about Patchface. Because I
But-
have started Clash.
So while we're here, we do get the mention again for the
Of
second
bungles?
time.
Bundles.
Oh, that's not what I was going to say.
Sorry,
but,
go ahead.
but that Jon Arryn was going to foster Robert with Stannis.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
another clue that Lysa maybe not consistent or trustworthy.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Kat's sort of uncomfortable with this. She's like, wait, that's not. He was gonna go to Casterly Rock.
Yeah, because Liza told Kat that one of
Yeah.
the issues was that they were going to send Robert to Tywin.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
the Lannisters.
And Kat was like, oh, I get that, why you wouldn't want that. But in reality, he was going to go to Stannis. And it's like, Catelyn would probably be like, why not? That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, of course, Frey has his own thoughts about Lord Stannis, too. They're both bungholes who think they're too noble to shit. Nothing but
love it.
resentment from Walder Frey. But Kat is able to play into it and be humble and ask, what did they do that was so bad to you? And he mentions, well, they wouldn't take my 2 grandsons to court. So she's like, we'll take your 2 kids, your shitty little Freys,
Yeah.
who end up being, they're a big part of Bran's arc.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Big
Big
Walder,
Walder, Little Walder.
Yeah, because they're not in the show,
No.
and so I was like, oh, there are gonna be more kids running around at Winterfell. I wonder
Exactly.
how that plays into things.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I love when she's talking about the deal that she strikes with Walder, and Rob's like, "Oh, that's not too bad," and she's like, "And this." Well, all right, and this, and this.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we have Rob consenting to this. And when he does that, Catelyn thinks he had never seemed more manly to her than he did in that moment. Boys might play with swords, but it took a lord to make a marriage pact knowing what it meant. And that just knowing how this ends really, I think, drives home more than
Yeah.
anything the fact that Rob is not a man.
Rob
he is
the
a boy
boy.
playing
Yeah.
a man.
It also is interesting to think that a marriage pact, you kind of, I mean, granted, unless something happens to the wife, you can only really do that once. That's like a card you play once.
Yeah.
Or that's a card you can only count on playing once.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
And it's, it's interesting that, like, they chose to play that
Yeah.
card here.
To cross the twins.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Like, that's
you
a
can't do it again.
big,
Well, and
yeah.
and it's 2 marriage pacts.
Yeah.
With Arya, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just one.
What would Rob or the Starks possibly have been holding out for as an alternative? Who would he marry instead? Someone, a lord's daughter, I'm sure, but
Tyrells?
Tyrells, maybe.
Dorne?
just anyone of a
Another
greater
high-
house?
Yeah.
Another high horse.
I think-
or high house.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of strategic value, I think this is as good a time as any.
In this moment, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Like, he's 15, when he's 30, is this still going to be like...
Let me get medieval on you again.
Oh, shit.
So, betrothals and marriage pacts are a thing in medieval literature, and it's the tension between your public and your private duties, and the tension between, like, what, if you're a noble, what you have to do as a public persona, what's expected of you,
Yeah.
versus in private what you would want to do or what you would feel like doing.
And is it the good leaders who choose to do what they are supposed to do instead of what they want to do?
It's the exemplars of what it means to be noble who understand what they have to do as their public role.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll bemoan it in private, but they won't ever let it be an issue in public. So that's a thing.
And
Yeah.
and a marriage pact worked out well for Catelyn,
Yes.
so it may be in her thinking that it
Yeah.
could go well for Rob.
Like,
This
he'll
could be
learn to
fine.
love her and
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
Well,
It
like,
worked for me.
okay, are there any other marriage pacts in this series that turned out
That,
well,
like,
that
work
were
out
like
great?
like Ned and Kat? Because Cersei and Robert,
No.
not so good.
John and Liza, not great.
Not great there.
Does
Bob.
Edmure and his Frey wife
I
ever?
don't think
Did
they
they-
were
I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, that's pretty coerced.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Ned and Kat are the exception
Yeah.
to the rule.
Well, it sounds like Rhaegar and Elia were all right, maybe, if they had been left to their own
Okay.
devices, but obviously
Yeah.
that was not the case. I love how it
Like,
takes
Rhaegar and
hours.
Cersei probably would have turned out well if they had gotten
Yeah,
married.
maybe.
I would love that alternate universe.
I love how it takes hours for the host to cross the bridge. That just really drives home the size of this thing to me. And then, this last paragraph, Chelsea, I think explains explicitly what we were trying to explain with the map. The larger part of the northern host remained upon the east bank under the command of Roose Bolton. So they are on the east side of the river, the same side that Tywin's army is at, south on the King's Road. And so they're going to continue to march south to confront the huge Lannister army coming north from under Lord Tywin. Meanwhile, Robb is now on the western side of that river and is going to march south to relieve River Run from siege.
I like somebody in the chat says the line, for good or ill, her son had thrown the dice, and it's top 100 movie challenge, like throwing the dice in a D&D campaign. Like, where's Gressel for Game of
Wonder
Thrones
what she
D&D?
rolled there. All right, moving on to John 8.
John 8.
Got, what, this, Dany and Tyrion?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I know.
I know. What have we been doing? How are we going so slowly?
Okay, John 8. This is the
I have so many notes, and I keep getting sidetracked with medieval tropes. That's how
They're all good.
I'm being Gressel today.
This is the chapter where John receives Longclaw, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then he finds out that Robb is marching, and then he finds out that Aemon is a secret targ.
Secret Targ!
He's not a secret targ.
Kind of a
He is
secret
to
targ.
John.
Yeah. Let us have this.
Yeah, Secret Targ.
Fine number. Oh, Freya to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
If someone says I have to say it.
I thought you just said it out of nowhere.
No, it's in the chat.
Yeah.
Guys, John's hand is gross.
Yeah, fearsome blood blisters rising
That's
between his
nasty.
fingers, big as roaches. Did we really need the comparison to roaches?
Yeah.
There's no modern medicine. He has to put it in ice and snow to get it to feel okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
Shaved ice like a snow cone. They got a snow cone machine.
Italian shaved ice.
He was just like,
Blood blister flavored.
oh.
Also, I think it's interesting that he's all upset that he has no idea what's going on with his family, particularly Ned. He doesn't, because all he heard was like, oh, my dad's a traitor now. Like, he doesn't really, he doesn't know, he doesn't have any information.
Yeah.
But is it interesting that, his hand is hurting, and that's the hand?
Oh. Yeah.
Ooh,
Maybe.
some interesting.
Let me have that.
I love more fuel to my fire of Jeor Mormont not being as great of a commander as I originally thought. How's it that everyone knows everything around here? It's like, yeah, Mormont, your guys do know more than you.
He's
They
not
all
a boots on the
gossip.
ground kind of
They
manager.
gossip
Not
over
very aware.
breakfast.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, dude, they were in the hall, probably like a few tables down from you talking about it.
I like how, though, with his very high up tower where he had his quarters burning and other things happening, he's going to be brought lower and be more involved with the day-to-day.
Sure, yeah.
I like that this chapter we get John's dilemma about duty, Robb and the Starks versus the Night's Watch, and I wrote, he's more like Cat than he thinks.
In the fact that what?
That he's torn between his two duties, between his two families.
Family and-
yeah.
and-
Well, between his two families, his family the Starks and his family the Night's Watch.
Okay, yeah.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and of course,
Ooh.
of course, he has these conflicts, and he's kind of won over to stay by Lord Mormont giving him Longclaw, which he appreciates, but still doesn't. He's not fully happy about it because he can't stop thinking about ice and how he always would have dreams of having that. When John had been Bran's age, he had dreamed of doing great deeds as boys always did. The details of his feats changed with every dreaming, but quite often he imagined saving his father's life. Afterward, Lord Eddard would declare that John had proved himself a true Stark and place ice in his hands. Even then, he had known it was only a child's folly. No bastard could ever hope to wield a father's sword. Even the memory shamed him. What kind of man stole his own brother's birthright? I have no right to this, he thought, no more than to ice.
And that's what Kat was afraid of when Ned brings John.
And I wonder what Kat would think if she knew that John had these dreams but felt shamed about
Yeah, I
it.
felt really ashamed.
He has these dreams because they're like a desire of his, but he knows in his waking, sober moments that he wouldn't want to do that to Robb. So I think maybe that would reflect well on Kat, or maybe she would just focus in on the fact that he does
Oh, you're
have those
thinking
desires.
about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say top 100 movie challenge. As far as John's dream of a white, it's a white with Ned's face. I think that this would be a somnium naturale dream because he's been taking milk of the poppy and he's feeling really ill because of his burned hand. However, given the other dreams that we've been talking about and that in the last section of reading, I think John was having a prophetic dream. We'll just kind of have to wait and see.
This feeds into my theory that by the end of the books, we're going to get a big showdown with all the old, Lords of Winterfell as whites.
That would be sweet.
Yeah.
Wait,
So-
can whites come back from being way dead?
We're not sure, are we?
I feel
Oh,
like
no.
probably.
What if
Master
Lyanna
Lord.
gets whited and she comes back and she's like, Lyanna, because she's down the
We
crypts.
fucked up.
John, love me.
I would.
I
yeah.
like Leviosa Lily's remark that the Tully words are important in Jon's storyline, and Freya's remark that Cat impacts Jon.
Oh yeah,
lot.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that he has mommy issues because of it.
Yeah.
I think it's really important as far as the larger picture of the Whites and White Walkers and the Long Winter. Mormont talking about fire. Yes, damn it, we ought to have known. We ought to have remembered. The long night has come before. Oh, 8,000 years is a good while to be sure. Yet if the Night's Watch does not remember, who will?
The North always remembers. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he is probably familiar with texts and lores about how the White Walkers rose once before and how they were defeated with fire.
I also like the visual parallel. If you kind of buy into the idea that Jon, by the end of the series, is going to be
Azor
in the
Ahai.
in the showdown against like the Whites and Ice and the Long Night. That you have this visual of Jon with this burnt hand that was caused by fire, who just defeated this White who like had a hand removed that was like frostbitten and like purple and icy.
Oh yeah.
I think it's kind of cool.
That's
like
cool.
his hand is set up in parallel with the hand that Alistair Thorne is currently taking
Right,
south
yeah,
to King's
yeah.
Landing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
And I like that we get the mention of the other White and that they didn't use fire and it slew 4 people.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you could just defeat a White by chopping it up, but I've always wondered that in like movies where something has to be defeated by specifically like fire or a certain element. My mind has always thought, but can't you just chop it up into a bunch of little pieces, and isn't that as good as
But
dead?
they
And I
might
guess-
still be working
little
like
pieces?
like in Pirates of the Caribbean
It
where they
just
like
takes
cut the arm off and then
longer.
the arm still like crawls
But the arm's
up.
a big chunk of meat and muscle. If you chop them
Yeah,
up into like little,
But it's gonna take a while to chop up all
Yeah,
those things.
and
into
you're
little
losing
pieces. And
people
if you
while
chop
it
up
happens.
like larger bits,
Evidently.
then they're gonna start attacking while you're chopping like the leg
Yeah,
into a
that's
small
true.
That was
bit.
happening with Jon in Gior's quarters too.
Yeah.
Like he lopped off an arm or a leg or something and it was still coming at him.
like
Yeah.
gagging him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that image. Oh, down his throat.
His father's eyes that ran liquid down his cheeks like jellied tears. Sometimes George chooses words.
Wait,
that
where was the?
That's 656. Jellied tears is just so disgusting to me. Like his father's skin bursts and blackens.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot. It's the sentence right after that. Jon did not understand why that should be or what it might mean, but it frightened him more than he could say. There's a line later, I think, on 658 too, where he doesn't know how he's feeling. He feels bad, but he doesn't know why. He's angry, and I think he just needs time to reflect. But there's so much going on. His divided loyalties, PTSD from this otherworldly thing just happening to him. But he doesn't know his own mind right now, and he keeps getting buffeted with all of these important decisions, and he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
On 657, he thinks, in regards to Gior, he is not my father. Lord Eddard Stark is my father. I will not forget him. And clearly we know that Lord Eddard Stark is not, but I think it drives home that thing that we always talk about in regards to Jon and also to Tyrion if he is revealed to be a secret target. It doesn't matter what their biological father is.
Yeah, like
but-
Ned is still Jon's father.
Yeah, Tywin
this
will
is
always be Tyrion's
Echoed
father.
in, and like I haven't read that section yet, but I know about it because I'm obsessed with Sansa. This is echoed in her Elaine storyline where she's in disguise and in her own head she's like, I'm a Stark.
Yeah, she
Eddard
thinks
and Lady
about
Catelyn.
Ned's my father.
Also, like Jon's whole fantasy about receiving ice and being upset that he never could because he's not the proper son to receive it, and he has this angst about like never receiving a sword from his father. It's interesting to realize that later ice is melted down and given by Tywin to Jaime and Joffrey. And it's just like, like that's so shitty.
Yeah, another son receiving a sword
Yes.
that's not his to receive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe one day Jon will receive Oathkeeper since it's
Maybe Brienne
with
has
Brienne
it.
right now.
And we don't know where Joffrey's sword is.
I want
It's like a
Brienne to
mystery.
keep
Yeah, it is a mystery. I think Littlefinger has it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a popular
that's
theory.
my
Also,
favorite
ice
theory.
is melted down and made into 2 swords, and Tywin doesn't give those to his 2 sons.
Oh yeah, Tyrion.
Like he doesn't give them to Jaime
Oh.
and Tyrion, he gives it to
Well, he gives
Jaime.
one to Jaime.
Yeah, but he doesn't give it to Tyrion. Like,
Yeah.
No,
here
of
you
course
go,
not.
son, like what?
What would you do with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Use it to underline.
I
Words and
love when they're talking about the names. I like John's remark that wolves have claws as much as bears.
Yeah, that's
Very
great.
cool.
And that pleases the Lord Commander.
Yeah.
Another, that's a man's sword you have there. It'll take a man to wield her. I'll expect you to act the part.
Kill the boy and let the man be born.
Yep. Acting man, acting boy, man, boy, act. Oh, hey, remember Jeremy Riker, who we pointed out was kind of a dick? He's
dead now.
Yeah.
He got killed
Jeremy
by
Riker,
the
he
White.
did.
Him and 4 nameless others who weren't as important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Gior's like, how's your hand? Can you do your duties? And John's like, yeah, even though earlier in this chapter, it's like this nasty hand that pains him and he has to shove it in the ice.
Yeah.
He's like, well,
And he,
you gotta
like,
go back to work
cries.
now. No,
He cries that
no
night.
disability leave.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to lose his job by taking time off to recover.
I also like, and I know it's not supposed to be read like this, but the guards smiled at him from their niches as he wound his way down the turret stair, carrying the sword in his good hand. Sweet steel, one man said. Like, sweet.
Steel,
steel.
man. Dude.
I like Gren and Pip, and they're all talking, and then it's like the sword. Matt insisted. Who the fuck's Matt? Matt.
Wait, where's
where?
that? Oh,
I'm
yeah, who is
659.
that?
I circled Matt. I was like, who are you, dude?
Can I just say, this reminds me of in Harry Potter when Harry gets the Nimbus, or the Nimbus 2001. McGonagall's like, don't open it at the table, and he's like, in the movie, he's like ripping it open, and everybody's like, woo! Show me the broomstick.
Show me the sword.
Yeah, who is Matt?
Who the
Yeah.
fuck's Matt?
Some
the,
black brother.
Yeah, the, like
I-
Dean Thomas guy who's just like, oh, I'm your friend now because you got a cool thing, right?
Hey, I heard he has
Yeah.
a 6-pack.
Yeah.
No, he's got an 8-pack. He's shredded.
Yeah.
I like John showing Ghost the pommel sword. Look, it's you.
Look, it's you.
Yeah.
We do that with Lucy with
Ghost
any.
is just like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel bad, but John, he's doing it to himself. Like, he's thinking about on 660, he's thinking about Ghost and, oh, how I found you and you were part because the others drove you out. He's self-isolating this chapter a little bit.
sure.
He's probably depressed.
Like, he could talk to his friends, but he's thinking, oh, they don't understand what I've
they
been
don't.
through.
Yeah, no one understands.
Like, they would understand. You
Even
have to
when
talk
he's
to
talking
them.
to Eamon later, and Eamon spends a while explaining, like, look, you know,
That's this chapter.
this is
Yeah.
yeah.
I literally understand this better than you
Yeah,
even
like-
could. This has happened to me multiple times
Like,
and
John's like,
worse.
This
no,
is
it
your-
didn't. And
yeah.
he's like,
Like, this
Yeah.
is your data, like, this is your duty, this is, like, what you have to do. And then he has this whole thing, and then John's like, but I'm different.
I like when Sam's like, so somebody in the chat mentioned we do get a name drop for Heartsbane.
Heartsbane?
Yeah, we
Blue
do.
Steel.
Yeah.
And then Sam's talking about Eamon, and he's like, he sees things no one else does, and Sean's like, he's blind.
Well, yeah. Shut up, Sam.
So moody.
Also, hey Joel, on that what you
Hey.
just said, John thinking about when he found Ghost. John had heard a noise and turned back, and that's when he found Ghost. What was that noise, guys?
Wait,
Something high pitched that
Wait,
only
wait,
his
say
ears
that
are
again.
tuned to.
When John just thinking about how he discovered Ghost, John had heard a noise and turned back.
Yeah, because there's the litter of puppies.
Maybe it was a purposeful noise coming from a certain. Maybe it sounded like the wind.
oh.
It's a brand
That's
theory.
that's
Maybe-
a
Oh.
brand reference.
Maybe,
Oh, you-
maybe he just warged with Ghost.
That's what I was gonna say. Like he was there and then warged into little baby Ghost.
Baby
There's a
Ghost.
theory that it's Bran from his three-eyed raven.
Oh,
Control
Oh,
center.
like making a sound.
Jumping through sound and being like, John, go get Ghost.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, Ghost, I'm
Yeah.
guessing is going to be very important for John Endgame.
Javier says the noise is warging.
Is what?
Warging.
Oh.
Because, like, Rob didn't hear anything when John did for Baby Ghost.
Baby Ghost.
That's a ghost.
I don't know.
Thank you,
It's-
Master
it's
of
up
Lore.
for it's up for debate.
I
Amen.
like,
Oh.
so we get Eamon.
And we
Like,
get
feed the birds.
yeah. We get possibly like
Tough
the
ones.
theme of all of today and what Ned is going through. Basically, love being the death of duty.
Yeah.
Can I talk about birds?
And how
yes.
this
Oh, yeah.
scene is
Because
terrifying.
he talks about crows, ravens, and doves.
Yeah.
Right? So the raven will, this is more from the bestiary, The raven will not accept its young until their feathers turn black. That's actually the like phrase that's associated with ravens from the medieval bestiary, and I think that's a great parallel for the Night's Watch.
Yeah, until their sons, their like
Until they
new
take the
recruits
black.
turn
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. For crows,
thinking.
it's a long-lived bird that foretells the future. Like a crow is a long-lived bird that foretells the future. I don't really know what that means.
Oh, it's a long-lived bird that foretells the future. The three-eyed.
Yeah.
It's Raven.
Yeah.
Yeah. At first, like, I was like, oh,
I feel like
yeah.
they're. I think crow and raven are used kind of interchangeably in A Song of Ice and Fire. And then for dove, just because I found it interesting, the bestiary term that goes for dove is that there's meaning in the various colors of the doves. And the white doves in a medieval bestiary are specifically associated with John the Baptist and the cleansings of baptism. And I was like, what about the cleansing of winter? Since they use white doves to signify that winter
right.
is here.
Ah.
So those are my notes on birds. Oh, and then the other thing about ravens from the bestiary is that when a raven eats a corpse, because like Eamon is saying here, they prefer to eat meat, it pecks out the eyes first so that it can eat the brain.
Oh,
Now,
how nice.
That's an easy
That's
way.
just
in.
Yeah.
like a weird, interesting fun fact.
Yeah.
All my fun facts here about medieval stuff.
I'm just also imagining like this whole room filled with ravens,
like 100
and he's
birds.
throwing meat, and it's all like,
Yeah.
it'd be so scary.
Because he can't see where he's throwing it either.
Yeah.
If Eamon were doing it, yeah.
No.
So when Aemon finally like reveals his lineage to Jon, he says, "I had to sit forgotten as they cut down my brother's poor grandson." That's Aerys. That's the Mad King that he's calling my brother's poor grandson.
Yeah.
Like Aemon.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because his brother is Aegon
Okay.
The
Unlikely.
Oh, the unlikely.
Unlikely,
That's right.
yep.
The unlikely.
Aegon's son, or was it his son, Jaehaerys II?
I know it's different in the show.
It is different in the show.
I don't know why, but
They just cut out Jaehaerys, I'm pretty sure.
Isn't Jaehaerys
may regret.
Aerys' father?
What? Yes, he is Aerys' father. Looking some facts up, guys. Sorry. So, yes, he was the second-born son of Aegon V, which is the Unlikely, and he's the father of Aerys II. So, yeah, he's cut out of the show for some reason.
Probably
I guess.
because they thought people would just be confused by
I
all
see,
these
yeah.
But he's-
Targaryen names that we
He's
never
literally
meet.
the only king cut out of the show.
Oh.
It's really weird. I guess in the show, Aerys Mad King is the son of Aegon the Unlikely.
Oh, that's weird.
It is weird.
I like, Aemon has some really good lines in this section. Love is the bane of honor, the death of duty, and sort of he's saying like doing whatever is right is not necessarily choosing duty. And I like that he remarks, the gods have fashioned us for love. That is our great glory and our great tragedy. He's talking specifically about like romantic couplings. I'm thinking there about Rhaegar.
Oh, yeah. It was
And
love that
that's-
kind of brought about everything.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, he's talking directly to Jon when
Yeah.
presumably it was Ned choosing between honor and one that he loves when he was at Lyanna's bedside. And it's literally, what is honor compared to a woman's love? What is duty against the feel of a newborn son in your arms? It's not his son, but he
A
becomes
newborn
that.
son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
That's
like
right.
too, he says, we all do our duty when there's no cost to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is in the show. I just looked it up. The show just gets rid of Jaehaerys for whatever reason. So in the show, Mad King Aerys is Aemon's nephew. Whereas in the books,
Okay.
it's like would it be a grandnephew? I don't know if
Yeah.
that's yeah.
yeah.
It's a weird thing to simplify. But yeah, Javier in the books, it's Aegon the Unlikely, Jaehaerys, Aerys. But in the show, Aegon the Unlikely is Aerys' dad, which is fucking weird. If
I
you
like-
know those characters.
How
yeah.
how
Like Aeg gave birth to the Mad King.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
we all do our duty when there's no cost to it. How easy it seems then to walk the path of honor. And I'm thinking that because we had in Ned's chapter earlier Varys's specific remarks about honor. And it's like we know from Ned, it's not easy to walk the path of honor.
And it
these
might
are
be,
interesting.
yeah, it might be
tie-ins
harder
and
too. Like
vocabulary.
Ned, in the choice that he's about to make, it would be easier for him to stick to his honor. It might be more selfless and harder to say honor for me is actually loyalty to my children and my commitment to protect them. So I will take a different form of honor and disavow
and
this public honor.
That goes into sort of what I was saying, that doing what's right is not necessarily doing what is the most honorable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you think of someone like Jaime, where he's defined by being a Kingslayer, and like everyone sees him as an unhonorable man. And it's like, yeah, there was a great public cost
Yeah.
to that. Like if he decided to be honorable and to keep his vow to his king,
So many people
then there's
would die.
there's such a cost to that.
Yeah.
They'd all be
Easier
burned.
said than done.
All right, guys, moving on to Daenerys. Is that fine? Any final thoughts?
Aemon looks at Jon with dead white eyes.
Yeah, Jesus.
And then I love the reveal of Aemon Targaryen. Jon could scarcely believe it. Once, said the old man. Once.
Right?
Like he's not Targaryen anymore. But this is what I was talking about last week when Dany's like, I'm the last one. And I'm like, Aemon's still around.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Daenerys 7. This is a rough chapter.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just do a big old content warning for this chapter, because it's pretty awful, and I am going to want to stay kind of vague about it, because like we
Well,
all read it.
Yeah, we're not going to quote the very explicit sexual violence
it's-
passages in here.
It's gross.
Yep.
I think it's
If I had known that this chapter was, if I'd remembered that this chapter had all that, I would have said something last week. So sorry for anyone.
yeah, but I think it's all there for it serves a purpose,
Yeah.
a gruesome purpose. But
Before
think, yeah.
Get to that, I have some more animal information for you guys. So the little quote that goes with the horse in the bestiary is a horse is a horse, of course, of course. But
It's from the bestiary.
they had it up as like next to it might not actually be a medieval term or anything,
like,
but it's
I
like
think that's
their
Mr.
little
Ed.
that's their little quote that they put next to the like image of the horse.
Okay.
Okay.
But they specify that there are 3 different kinds of horses. There's the kind that is good for battle and work, and there's the kind that is good for carrying burdens but not for riding, and there's the kind that's a mix of the two. So that's my information about horses. And then as far as sheep, the sort of quote that goes with the sheep is the defenseless, placid animal, and sort of specifically that sheep in medieval literature are offered as sacrifices. And I find that really interesting in this chapter with
Both
the
applicable
lamb men.
to the
Yeah.
Lazarine. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. So that's my little fun animal stuff.
Yeah, the Lazarine live southeast of the Dothraki Sea, and I always feel so bad for them because they seem they're vegetarians, they're super peaceful.
They're like all about agriculture.
Yeah, they're just like shepherds, and they just get fucking always
Pillaged.
conquered by pillaged by
Yeah.
cows, and I think by cities around them.
Yeah. And okay, here's what I think is interesting about this chapter and how gruesome it is and how it happens at the end of this book specifically, because this whole book, through Daenerys' POV, she's coming to really love being a Dothraki, and she loves her husband, and she considers herself a Khaleesi, and the way that she talks about the Dothraki is in this very like mythical kind of way, like they're such grand warriors, and it's all very like beautiful and legendary.
Story-like.
And then we get to this, and this is like the reality of what a
Palisar
culture
does.
or a person like Khal Drogo is.
Yeah.
It's not beautiful. It's not mythical. It's awful. And she's kind of like realizing that. I think like this is the first time in the book we really see the Dothraki being the Dothraki, like taking another culture and just taking.
She's been protected up to this point
Yeah.
because they've been on the road, they've been
Well, and
invaded
it's
Dothraki.
not just the Lazarine, but also another Khalasar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And
Yeah.
like
Even
it's
the respect
described,
for another Khalasar.
she wonders because first the Lazarine were being pillaged by Khal Ogo's
Yeah.
Khalasar,
Yeah.
and then they came in, decimated that other Khalasar, and then, obviously continued to pillage the
Yeah.
Lazarine. And there's a line where, I don't know where it is, but she just wonders what those Lazarine must have thought of when they saw this other force coming over
Like,
the hill.
they're coming to see.
Yeah, and it's so sad to think about that.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the first chapter where Dany begins to... A lot of Dany's storyline has to do with slavery and freeing slave societies. And so far in this book, she's encountered a lot of slaves and hasn't really thought too much about them. They're at her wedding feast.
She notices them, but she doesn't really get concerned about what.
Yeah, it doesn't
doing.
strike her as something that's bad or wrong. It's just something that is. And she wouldn't be cruel to them, but she accepts it.
Because she thinks of her handmaids as handmaids, but
Yeah,
they're,
she's
they're
like,
slaves.
I treat them well, so.
Yeah, so it's okay. Yeah.
But she does know the difference between what they are and someone who would be there out of choice or be a true friend. Like, they are slaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the beginning, I think, of a really important part of Daenerys' character in that she expects gratitude
Yes.
from people that she saves and people that she, delivers from slavery. And I think it's really important to recognize, this is a big criticism of Daenerys that I don't think is legitimate. I don't think Daenerys is supposed to be a straightforward, white savior. I don't think we're supposed to look at her and think that she's amazing. She's so flawed. And I think planting the seeds of her expecting gratitude from these women that she's rescuing is commentary from George R.R. Martin that a person like this is they don't quite get it.
Yeah, and she's doing it from a position of power within the Call, but she's not of that culture. She's been in it maybe a year.
Yeah.
And she is given power because she is Khal Drogo's wife, but she makes demands that are, what the Dothraki are doing is objectively horrifying, but she is making these sweeping demands that are entirely counter to their way of being, their entire way of life.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm not sure if she's overstepping her bounds or is doing what is prudent, but I feel like she's definitely, her not being a true Dothraki will be playing into this.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, Chelsea, I think the quote that explicitly says what you were talking about, Dany felt she could trust this old plain-faced woman with her flat nose. She had saved her from the hard hands of her rapers, after all.
Yeah. And I think that Mirri Maz Duur, that whole arc and that whole part of this book is a really nice kind of compacted version of Dany's whole arc, because she rescues Mirri Maz Duur and expects this, expects her to be grateful and expects her to be super loyal to her in return, but spoilers, it turns on her.
It doesn't work out for
It doesn't
her.
work out for her. And so then we see this later when Daenerys goes into Slaver's Bay and tries to spruce it up and save everybody, and that blows up in her face too. And I think it is, a lot of people disagree with this, but I think it's an interesting observation that Daenerys is a very Bush era character.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, granted, this isn't quite Bush era yet, but the Slaver's Bay stuff is. It was written during the George W.
Going in and liberating.
Going into liberating and
and not having a plan.
I'm bringing you democracy. You should be so grateful to me, but not understanding the very delicate ecosystem that you're completely disrupting.
And even if it wasn't written with that in mind, if he had these ideas before that ever happened in our world, it's a very interesting parallel.
It is, and so that's why, especially there was criticism of the show, the Misa episode, where it's Misa, and it's,
Season
if
3
you look
finale.
at it at face value, it's pretty gross.
This is
But I think the point of it is that it's gross.
a great study in imperialism and colonial and post-colonial
Yes, so I
critical
think
theory.
I think Daenerys has to be looked at. I don't think she's supposed to be taken straightforward like that.
And of course, she
Yeah.
still has a long way to go to the Daenerys we know from later books and seasons, because she's still taking these people as slaves. She's not taking them and freeing them. She's, I guess, right now you could say she's working within the confines of the culture.
That's literally
that she
how
has.
I was gonna phrase it.
Is that she's taking them as slaves
Yeah.
to protect them. and later once she's in a position of more power, when she has dragons, she will just bypass that and free people instead of taking them as slaves.
I like her thoughts when she's thinking about the slaves, and she's like, this is war, this is what it looks like, this is the price of the Iron Throne. And like, you gotta ask yourself, is the throne really worth it? If this is the price of the Iron Throne, and like we know what's happening in Westeros, and like what the prices are in Westeros, is the throne worth it? Like,
Well, I mean, she's
Why do
probably
you
thinking
want
about how
it?
like it's gonna happen regardless. You know, if she doesn't do it, someone else will.
Yeah.
Might be a thought.
But I do like how.
that's a fallacy.
Yeah, well, she
I'm not
thinks
saying I agree with it.
she thinks that, and then she turns away, and has the second thought though, and it's also I think a significant step in her ideation around the kind of ruler she wants to be, because she's not thinking of the Iron Throne and how to get there and accepting a system of slavery. She's thinking, I will take power, but I'm going to do it on my own terms, and I'm going to do it in a way that reflects my values. So she's not accepting of the world and taking the path that's already there to get power. She's specifically thinking, I will take power but upend systems as I go. And she feels like she has the right to do that as well.
Like, revolutions don't work.
What do you mean?
We're in America.
Do you mean
Big,
unilateral
like-
top-down revolutions?
Yeah, big ticket, like we're gonna just completely overthrow the system. Those don't work.
Sometimes they do.
Power vacuums.
At least once
No.
it worked.
Well, I wouldn't call what happens in Marine, at least in the show, revolution, because she tries to empower people, but
I feel like
it's so hard to do it from a top-down approach.
This is probably the show being in my mind, but like she doesn't want to work within, at least based on the show episodes in like Marine, she doesn't want to work within the confines the way that Tyrion's like, okay, well, we'll give you 7 years, we'll give you this amount of time to shift. She's like, right away, like,
Well, eventually
let's
she
change
might
it.
grow to understand that she has to work within existing systems,
Yeah.
but when she first gets to Marine, I think she thinks that strength alone will be able to change culturally ingrained just ways of being and ways of living and supporting a city. And that doesn't work.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Miri Mazdur, she's a really weird, interesting character.
Yeah.
Especially since we find out that she's been kicking it with Marwyn over in Ashai.
That's one of the things I wanted to point out. That's
Okay, but
Nice.
before we get to that, I think it's very interesting that she blesses Dany in the common tongue. How would she know Dany speaks the common tongue? I mean, besides the fact that she's
Color
like
of
a
her skin?
white lady.
Yeah.
But I wonder if she just like realizes who Dany, like she knows immediately it's Daenerys Targaryen.
Well, she also has that hair, and that's very rare.
Right, but I'm saying like if we also take into account that Miri Mazdur and Marwyn, you know, I feel like
She would have known of Targaryens and what they are.
I think she's just a lot more aware of the Targaryens and all the stuff going on in Westeros than anyone would assume that she does.
Yeah, she's
think
at
she's
the
really
ass end of the world. Why would they assume that?
I was thinking about Miri Mazdur toward the end of this chapter when she's talking about the shepherd and like the shepherd watches after.
the Great Shepherd.
Yeah.
Another religion. in the
all-
which I love.
All I could think was, is George R. R. Martin intentionally using the language of evangelical Christianity here?
I did have, I mean, it's like really Christian, like lambs and
Yeah.
sheep and
Yeah.
great
Oh,
goats.
yeah.
It's like really,
explicit,
really Christian.
like evangelical Christianity language.
I thought it was interesting that they, for being a more peaceful people, that the lamb is their symbol, the shepherd is their symbol, and that they seem much more pacifist than the Dothraki. That was all. And that they have an animal related to their religion as well, and their life, just like the Dothraki do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
the black
definitely
goat
a
of Qohor.
parallel
There's a
there.
black goat in Qohor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Varys referenced it in the Edo
Ah.
chapter.
Now I'm thinking of
And
what was
like
that?
what? There's some religion where the goddess has like a bunch of teats or something. It's like the Summer Isles.
Black Philip of Qohor.
Did you want to talk about Marwyn?
Yeah, she mentions meeting Marwyn in Ashai and that he's a maester. He's gonna come up way later.
So much later.
Much later.
Like-
he also might be showing up next season on the show.
I hope
Super
so.
exciting. But the fact is that he is a maester who was in a Shy, and what we know about a Shy is that it has to do with
Didn't
mages
Mel
and magic.
come from
And what we know about what?
there? Isn't
Yes,
Mel
that's
from
where
Shy?
Melisandre is from. And what we know about maesters is that they hate magic and they don't believe in it.
Yeah,
So here's
so-
this guy who straddles these two worlds.
Yeah, so like, what is a maester doing in a Shy?
Yeah.
and,
Why
and
is he
Jorah thinks
there?
like, oh, okay, sure, a maester and a Shy, but then she calls out the chain that he would have worn, and
He's like,
Yeah.
shit, I guess so.
Yeah.
And also, the fact that Marwyn, like, shows her, what is it? I can't find the passage. Oh, a maester from the Sunset Lands opened a body for me and showed me all the secrets that hide beneath the skin, which is creepy as fuck, and also reminds me a little bit of Qyburn. our
Yeah,
buddy
yeah.
So that's
Qyburn.
going to be a connection.
So
too.
another thing that maesters in general are frown upon is like, you know, weird Nazi doctor experiments.
knowing anatomy, you know.
Yeah.
Guys, I just have a question. What if in Planetos they aren't like the same species as us? Do they have the same organs? Are they like people like we are?
Joel.
Is the blue that they see
Is
the
it
blue
the
that
same
we
blue
see?
that I
That's
see?
right. Yeah.
Joel.
Maybe we're others. Maybe we're the others.
Joel, leave.
You don't know.
No, that's. I mean, like, yeah, that's fair. There's a mythos that's not quite human.
I
But-
wasn't serious.
I
Don't take me seriously.
I have three random points to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
First, real fast, is that just in defense of Rhaegar and Lyanna having a consensual relationship, when Dany saves people from being raped, Jorah says, "You are your brother's sister in truth." And so I feel like that's just,
Well, and then she's like, Viserys? And
yeah. He's like, no, come on."
Rhaegar.
He's like,
Oh, I had another
what are you
one.
thinking? Another one is that.
We get a little bit more on the Jorah backstory. Not explicitly, but he's talking about where to sell slaves. He's
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
who's
That's-
going to pay the good money. And you're like, oh, that's right. He was exiled because he was selling people.
Yeah, he's like, yo, we have all these people. They'll pay double for healthy young girls, and triple for boys under 10. You in its own way. If enough children survive the journey, the gold will buy us all the ships we need. It's like,
Great!
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Jorah. That's why you got banned from Westeros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why your passport was revoked.
Yeah. He
Was-
got his mic muted.
Whose mic was muted?
No, I'm saying Jorah. Because
Sorry.
you're just like, yeah, banned.
Yeah.
We'll have enough. We'll have enough ships to go back to where you were exiled from for doing exactly the thing that's gonna like give you
Yeah.
the money to
Yeah.
go back.
Here,
Jorah.
when they take Khal Drogo in to be healed, Dany commanded Ser Jorah and the warriors of her cause to guard the entrance and make certain no one set the building afire while they were still inside. I thought that was interesting, knowing what we know from the show,
Yeah.
which has an event that takes place past the events of the book. But if the same event takes place in the book, then this could be a little bit of foreshadowing. This is something on Dany's mind. She's like going into this thing and she's like, you know what? Someone could lock this and burn us alive. Let's make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So in a few years, she might be like, oh yeah, someone could lock this and burn them alive.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
And my final small point I wanted to make, and then you guys can make any stray thoughts you have. I know every secret of the bloody bed, Silver Lady, referring to a birth bed, and that I
was
think is a direct
thinking about
reveal.
Tower of Joy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
obviously
the
Tower
bed
of
of
Joy,
blood.
and just a few chapters earlier in Ned's final chapter, he talks about a bloody bed
Yeah.
in regards to Tower of Joy.
Yeah.
So those were my notes on this.
We get a little shout out to Eowyn from Lord of the Rings.
That's right.
I am no man.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, Khal Drogo needs a hand basically, and no man should be
He's like,
helping
"Ah."
him. So she says, "Yeah, lean on me."
I'll be your friend.
Please.
I thought it was interesting that Drogo's injury, the book versus the show, in the course of the show, I believe, is sustained in a dispute with one of his own men over Dany's.
Yep.
Yeah, policy. And I think this is.
Mago, I think, the guy who's right there. Like,
Sure.
he's here in the
Oh, yeah.
scene, but yeah, they don't fight.
Yeah, I thought this was cleaner thematically for the initial injury to come just from battle and to see what it does to Drogo.
Nasty injury.
It plays more on the tropes of, he's never been defeated.
Yeah, and just how a simple wound that he took place in, just your average everyday pillage, is the thing that did him in instead of this like romantic defense of his. Both ways work.
They go for different
also
does
things.
Him in because Miri Mazdor is like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, and that's how you'll heal it. And he's like, I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Oh yeah, absolutely. His arrogance, and Dany, I think also her arrogance as well, because she is fine with it and knows that it happens. But no wine, no milk of the poppy, and that's how you die, by not listening to your doctor.
Yep.
Anything from you, lady? All right, guys, let's move on to our final chapter of this reading, Tyrion 8.
I have so few notes for this chapter.
I just have battle.
It's a big action
It is
piece,
long.
and I really enjoy. It's a long chapter for sure. But we do have the introduction of Shay. That's pretty important for Tyrion's future.
Back to here.
And I just love Shagga, and I'm so glad that Shagga survives.
Shagga does survive, and I just love when he gets up, he's like, oh, I guess I got some arrows in me.
Yeah,
Sean Bean
it was
could have
like
learned a
he
thing or
almost
two.
sat there to take a nap or something. He's like, oh yeah. I'm good.
What I said earlier about how Tywin kept referring, your brother Jaime would never let this happen, at the bottom of 683, when Tyrion is scared before this battle, did his brother Jaime ever contemplate death before a battle?
I wrote that down too.
Yeah, those thoughts really seeped into Tyrion's mindset.
Yeah. This is a rare instance of him having a same experience that he could relate to his brother in, and he never had that before.
Yeah. Now he's probably eager to get back to Jaime and share some war stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, Drogo didn't finish taking his antibiotics.
Oh man, Tyrion doesn't get to eat anything in this chapter.
I know, he's so hungry.
He doesn't get food.
Yeah, like he why does he leave before eating the duck?
Because
his dad's being a dick,
His
maybe?
dad is Tywin's basically like, oh yeah, I'm putting you in the vanguard, and
Tyrion's like,
It's
well,
a
if
trap.
there's no other command, like I'll take it. And Tywin's like, you're not in command.
Yeah.
Sir Gregor's in command.
Yeah.
And Tyrion's like, I'm not hungry. Excuse me.
I love, before that, just some stories about Shagga. He likes to kill with either hand. Well, he still has that wood axe of his strapped to his back. He's of the opinion that 3 axes are even better than 2. And then Sir Kevin seldom had a thought that Lord Tywin had not had first.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin.
Oh, and here he picks up a piece of meat and doesn't even put it in his mouth. Oh, poor Tyrion. He doesn't get to eat here.
yeah.
This is something that we talked about a few weeks ago, but as he leaves, he's definitely feeling the isolation of his having to buy friendship with gold, and certainly he gets no love from his family. So he, doesn't find what he's going to want, like a sense of like closeness and intimacy from the Stonecrows, from Bronn, and so he wants the illusion of that with a prostitute. It's still relying on gold, but it's closer to what he wants. I think.
But is he ignoring-
he's a sugar daddy here.
But is he kind of I feel like the mountain clans kind of genuinely like him. Like, sure, they're kind of, your life is in debt to us right now until we get the stuff that you promised. But like, they're inviting him to have some meat, and they seem to like him. They respect him enough to follow him into battle and cheer his name and get all up into it.
But
Yeah, but they're not
at
equals.
his
I was about to
level.
say they're not the kind of people he wants to.
He wants to be
Respect.
respected by
Yeah.
the people who respect Jaime.
That's true.
And-
His brother
Yeah.
Jaime. His brother Jaime had always been able to make men follow him eagerly and die for him if need be. Tyrion lacked that gift. I disagree with that self-assessment from Tyrion. Or at least I think that he's going to learn that maybe he doesn't quite lack that, because he is able to do it here. He leads
Yeah.
the mountain men and half of them die.
Yeah.
And then we're going to see more of that at Blackwater.
And gold is what got them listening, but if that was all that he was able to offer and not the words that he has, like we see him leading them in battle.
I mean, like, they stay to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they get equipped, and they could have just bounced. Like, they could have gotten all the armor and the weapons and just, like, hightailed it back to the Vale, but they stayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Like, they
Tyrion's
respect
maybe,
him.
He might
he's
be-
maybe selling himself short.
He might grow in that. I mean, this is a new experience for him, but it goes well.
Yeah.
So Tyrion gets one, he gets Pod, who's introduced without much fanfare.
Besides, what does he
boy with
dislike
the
about his name? I
unfortunate
think it's a
name.
great name.
Podrick Payne.
Why not?
That's a little
Alliteration.
Like Podrick.
Yeah.
Though.
But it's it's great that he's there, but he also, of course, gets Shay. And I'm a Lannister, gold I have in plenty, and you'll find me generous, but I want more from you than what you've got between your legs. Oh, I want that too. You'll share my tent, pour my wine, laugh at my jests, rub the egg from my leg after each day's ride. And so Tyrion is buying Shay's everything.
Yeah.
He's buying her love. He's buying her as a date. And I feel like later on in the series, that's going to be... people don't like Shay. People don't like Book Shay. She's a little bit more conniving than Show Shay. A little bit less sincere. But I feel like Tyrion's making that bed right now.
Yeah, he's setting that up.
Yeah, he's saying, I'll buy your love.
He's a sugar daddy.
Yeah, and should he be surprised later on when it turns out that maybe she doesn't have genuine love for him?
Yeah.
As it can be argued, I guess. I do like the line, there was nothing underneath but Shay.
Yeah, that was clever. And further to your point, James, at the bottom of 680, we also, he knows what is between them is not real. It's not real love. But after they have sex, softly, quietly, he began to whistle. "What's that, my lord?" Shay murmured against him. "Nothing," he told her. "A song I learned as a boy. That's all. Go to sleep, sweetling." So I think that he's humming the same tune that he was humming.
Seasons of Love or whatever.
Oh yes, Seasons of Love, the nearest tune.
Yeah.
But the one that Taisha taught him.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
So-
of course.
And I think above that, we get that, he wanted someone, and it was her or someone like her. So he's fulfilling that role for her, and maybe he gets it confused.
Yeah. He definitely gets confused about this relationship.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe it can be forgiven after a year, however long they spend. Maybe you could forgive him for thinking that they had become genuine, but...
Well, and he says, too, in the section that you're referring to after they have sex, he's like, he suspected her delight was feigned, but that much truth he did not crave. So he talks about, like, be honest with me. And then he's like, well, we'll play house. Like, he's playing house, and he gets lost in his own game.
Yeah.
I
He
forget
wants
if
to believe it.
Book Shay gets jealous when he marries Sansa.
I know she does in the show. I forget if she does in the book.
Yeah, because that would mean that she did have some feelings.
Right,
in the book.
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll look
I don't
out for
remember.
it.
I like that, the conversation he has with Bronn. He's just standing there naked, peeing.
Yeah, I noticed. I was like, oh yeah, he's just
He's
walking.
like,
He's
hey,
outside
Bronn, where'd you
naked.
find her? And Bronn's like, I found her. They just talk about it. Bronn, saying he'll defend Tyrion in kind of a sweet way. You'll have me beside you. That's nice.
Yeah, I didn't point out, but in the earlier Tyrion chapter, Bronn smiled. I was like, oh, okay, maybe Book Bronn does have a little levity to him.
Yeah.
I like the description when Tyrion's pissed that they're in the van, and Bronn's like, yeah, a small man with a big shield, you give the archers fits. I just think that's so funny, because I can visualize that, because like, I do medieval combat, that's my helm in our set deck, but like, there's a person he's short, like he's, at least like a full head shorter than me, and he has this massive shield, and we all are like, we can't get by. Like, the shield's almost as large as he is tall, and we're like, we can't get behind Duke Ed's dang shield. Like,
Duke.
so it's such a good visual of like, yeah, Tyrion's shield is going to be the same size as his body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a battle.
Then there's a battle.
Big battle. I really liked it. I
liked it too,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's what a contrast from the show.
Yeah,
This
Back-
this is so cool to
Back
see him in an
before
actual battle.
the show had money.
So yeah, in the
Yeah.
show, Tyrion's riding off to war and gets knocked out and
just
wakes up,
gets-
and they're like, it's over, and that's it. Whereas as in the book, it's like 7 pages of
Yeah.
detailed
Yeah,
war.
the
He's
book
leading
he-
people, there are tactics, he's killing.
The tactics are great.
He
Yeah.
rips open a horse
With
with,
his
his
helm.
head.
He's
Like the
so
spike.
uncomfortable. That is such a
Yeah.
disgusting,
And just gets covered in viscera, it says.
disgusting visual.
Oh, we
Yeah.
gotta talk about how that proceeds too, with the man saying, yield, yield,
Oh,
yield.
I love that. And then Tyrion
He's
shrieks
like,
out, yield. And the knight's like, yeah, I yield.
Yeah,
Because
go
like,
on.
Tyrion was saying, I'm yielding. And
Yeah.
the knight's like, no, I yield.
And how much of
Yeah.
a disappointment must that episode have been to book readers when they first saw
Yeah.
it? They're like, oh, we're
I
getting
know,
this
man.
battle. It's going to be awesome. And then,
Yeah.
what?
I really love the description of Tywin's armor. It is
Yeah.
so
Oh my
He's got
god.
lions on his shoulders.
Fine
He's got a
as
lion on his helmet.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
And
and-
it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, that would not translate to the show.
I don't know.
his
Absurd.
armor puts Jaime's gilded suit to shame.
Yeah, I would have loved to
Like,
see this. I don't know what you're talking about.
but
His helmet
On
has
this
a
hill
giant
overlooking
lion
everything.
on top of the helmet. Like,
Yeah.
that's so
But
flippin'
it's one of those
cool.
things where it's like, George, you can't fight in that. Like Robert's helm with the antlers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
but like
just like-
Tyrion or Tywin's not going to be fighting.
Yeah,
No,
Yeah,
he's
like,
sitting.
that's true.
He's sitting in the
Yeah.
Yeah, it
skybox
is a-
viewing the whole
That's
thing.
true.
It is a Tywin-esque, like, just affront, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, it's absurd.
I love Gregor Clegane. He was pointing men into position with his blade, a two-handed greatsword that Sir Gregor waved about with one hand as a lesser man might wave a dagger. It's like a
Yeah.
two-hand, like ice, is what Gregor is just like, yeah, go over there.
Yeah.
Terrifying, man. I like that he breaks the spear wall just by, like, falling into it
Yeah.
and just swinging his sword around. It's crazy.
Let me tell you, like, as somebody who fights on a shield wall, yeah, like, big guys can just barrel you down.
Yeah.
I've gotten knocked over by, like, 200-300-pound dudes.
Nerf or
Yeah,
like,
tell
what's your
us,
weapon?
how is this happening?
I fight with a 9-foot fiberglass spear that has about 3 inches of a foam tip on it.
Okay.
Spear folk can do either like fiberglass or rattan. There are glaives that are rattan. The swords are generally rattan, so it's like hard
okay.
combat,
Yeah.
but it's not steel, but I get some nasty bruises.
That sounds awesome.
Anything
I'll do that.
anything that's going to be thrusting has a foam tip,
Okay.
just for protection. So
Yeah,
you're
like,
like
I want to do this.
injure
Yeah, I
yourself.
definitely want to do that. The more bruises, the better. Please.
Yeah, and like I'm slender. I'm on the smaller side of the fighters in the SCA. It's a lot of big dudes. And like my first war, I was 17. I was in my armor. It was the first time that I was fighting at war. And the Horsemen, who's another household, and they've got these big guys who are like a full head taller than me, who are like 300 pounds, and they just come like charging down, and I literally end up at the bottom of a pile of like 5 people.
Oh god.
And I'm like, help. Help.
Someone brought up the missing unicorn from the show.
Yeah. We talked about that before we
Oh, is this the
started
chapter with
streaming.
Brax?
I think he's in both of Tyrion's chapters,
Ah.
but yeah.
Yeah, purple unicorn. Hell yeah.
Oh, and also another thing I noticed about Gregor is that he shows neither sigil nor ornament. I think that's just from when he was instigating the war. Remember, like they wouldn't.
Wait.
Oh
sorry,
yeah,
say
when
that
they
again?
were pillaging the
Yeah.
like small towns.
Yeah,
Wait,
the
wait,
river,
wait, sorry.
Without-
lands.
Say that again.
His armor was steel plate, dull gray, showing neither sigil nor ornament. Because remember when he was pillaging the Riverlands,
Yeah.
he didn't have any.
Good
sigil.
call.
Yeah, so I think
Good
that's just
call.
like still the case here. And then I mean most of this is just a battle, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And it
not too
has-
much to analyze.
It has some of those details. Like, it made me think of Battle of the Bastards a little bit, because the chaos of war is conveyed here. You have a burned man, just riding past at one point, slumped over in his saddle. So the kind of just chaos, and I really appreciate how George was able to convey the larger scale tactics and what was going to be accomplished, but then how the battle just shrinks down to Tyrion's point of view, and it's just the few feet in front of him.
Yeah, I love that. It literally
Yeah.
says that.
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's a great.
I think thinking about the cinematography of the Battle of the Bastards in a scene like this is really good, because the way that Battle of the Bastards follows John in the midst of all this, and he's turned around and he doesn't know who is who. That's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he like realizes at one point, he like looks around and he's like, oh, the whole battle is like way over
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
He's just, but
And then he's like, oh, the river's now on my right.
yeah,
Whoops.
he's all flipping around.
Bronze nowhere to be found.
And then the battle ends, and the Lancers have taken hostages, Lord Kerwin, Sir Willis Manderley, which is important later on. Now they have a Manderley, so that's going to suck for Wyman. Harrion Karstark, that sucks for Karstark, and some Freys.
He's got 30 more. It's okay.
Yeah, there's so
But
many
Roose Bolton
Freys.
got away.
Yeah.
I put ... or did they let him escape?
I think here, I don't think Adam Marbrand would. I think we're seeing a conversation between Adam Marbrand and Tywin in a way where, like, there's not deception here. If they
But-
let him escape.
I'm
And
just.
if so,
I'm
Tywin
just-
would know.
Yeah,
Well,
Tywin would.
I'm just. But like his.
You're just stoking conspiracy theories. is what you're doing.
I got my tin foil on that. Roose Bolton's
like,
been
we've
bad from
seen-
the start.
We've seen that there's precedent where Tywin's like a feigned route is less convincing. Because Tyrion's like, why wouldn't you just tell me? He's like, I figured it out.
So in this theory that you're positing, perhaps
Perhaps
Tywin and Roose are in cahoots, but
Oh, yeah,
Adam
no,
Marbrand
that's
is
what
left.
Yeah,
That's what I meant.
right. Like,
Okay.
oh, okay, I fear he's
Yeah.
escaped.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. So
No, yeah, precedent of the feigned route. That's,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
good
no,
call.
that's what I was.
I hear that, but Tywin he's so happy with this. The Stark boy proved more cautious than I expected for one of his years, but a victory is a victory. And then it's a real surprise when the Starks were not here. They've crossed at the Twins, and they're riding for River Run.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely taken aback by that, but maybe if he and Roose have already struck up a deal, maybe it was like, all right, Roose, just get away, you know?
I like.
I'll be interested. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, this is a different.
I was going to say that I will be interested to track any information regarding Roose from this point forward, because I do want to
Yeah,
pinpoint.
I got my tin foil on Roose. Let's follow Roose.
Yeah, wait, what were you going to...
I like Tyrion's arm is injured, and Tywin's like, you appear to be wounded. And he's like, thanks for noticing. Can you get a maester, or do you want a one-armed dwarf for a son?
All right,
And then
Garrett,
he doesn't call a maester.
yeah.
any other notes?
Oh, we're finishing the book.
Oh my god, next week!
Cool.
I won't be around because, like I said, my medieval reenactment, I'm actually going to a camping event next week.
That'll be
I
awesome.
won't be here either.
Chelsea will not be here. We'll
Sucks.
probably
Right.
I'm pissed
hopefully
I
we
won't
get
be here
Liz.
for
I
the
don't
last.
know if she's in the chat today, but hopefully we can have
Chelsea,
her
we
join us.
should have you pre-record some kind of just message if you have any important
Yeah,
thoughts.
Yeah,
just
we'll
some
play it
video
now.
Yeah.
A message
clips
from Chelsea.
Uh-huh.
that
Just
you
because,
can
yeah,
play.
it sucks like
Play
you're
it
missing
when
the end of the
when
book.
the sound
It
doesn't
sucks.
work. At
Thanks.
the beginning, have a separate video that's Chelsea's thoughts, just like the Clue.
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll take 1 week off and then begin on Clash of Kings.
Yeah.
I'm excited to start Clash
Sorry
because
that-
that's where I gave up
Yeah.
on my previous read.
Well, the first Clash chapter is awesome. It's a prologue taking place with the Maester that's on Dragonstone with
Oh,
Stannis and
cool.
Davos, so
Yep,
it's
yep.
awesome.
Yeah, I have experienced none of it. When we were starting this, maybe a quarter or halfway, and I listened to the entire audiobook just so I could feel like I'm caught up on it. And I don't think I want to do that for Clash. I want to experience it as it happens.
Yes,
Serially?
let's do that
So-
for sure.
It'll be all new to me.
Any cues that we can A?
Do you want to put Q&A in the currently discussed?
No, I'd rather
You
just have the
wanna leave
next
that?
week's
Okay.
assignment, which is Catelyn
Yeah.
10 to the end of the story. This is probably our biggest chunk of reading, too. Is a little bit over 100
Yeah.
pages. Sorry,
Oh,
but
boy.
I mean,
But
we're not
just-
going to do half of this.
Just
so,
wrap it up.
Yeah, let's just wrap this up and be done with Game of Thrones on a successful season, I guess. Of book
I'm
club.
So excited.
And there's a little appendix in the back.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, you can read
Yeah.
that if you want to.
Yeah,
No.
I always referred to it my first time reading through.
It's
just
cool
as,
because
like-
it's got sort of the household members, the stewards and stuff. Yeah, are there any questions for
Look how we get a Theon
us?
chapter in this book at the very end
Oh, yeah.
for the next.
Anybody want to?
Oh, Freya, maybe you'll like it a little more on this reread. Maybe, did you not know the characters as well the first time you tried reading the prologue of Clash? Because I love that prologue. It's amazing. It's got Melisandre in there.
I guess maybe what's each of our, like, what did we like about this set of readings, this assignment? What was,
I love that Tyrion battle.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
It's great.
I love the Barristan stuff in Sansa's chapter.
yeah.
It's, it's
That
heartbreaking.
might have been my favorite. I just always like King's Landing stuff the best.
Yeah. And especially, Selmy is one of my favorite secondary characters, so
I
having all
liked-
that focus on him.
I liked the cat chapter about the phrase.
Yes, where she goes and talks to
Yeah.
Walder.
The 2 Catelyn chapters were my favorite, followed by the Ned, just crazy dream
Daenerys.
alone with his ghosts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Catelyn stuff, especially, both were great, but her negotiating with
Walder.
Walder, but also seeing Rob, who he is now and what she can trust in him, I think was interesting.
So we've got a question from Mikey. Which character do we think was better or worse on rereading?
I've been saying this whole time, I think Jior Mormont is worse on a reread. I don't know what you mean by better or worse, like written, or just like my opinion of
So
them
you're
as people.
thinking like as a person.
As a person, the first time I engaged with this series, he was this lofty, like, noble Lord Commander who, liked
Yeah.
Jon and did the right thing. But on this reread, I'm really like, he's kind of clueless.
Yeah.
He's a little, doesn't know what's going on. He's unaware of things.
I
Yeah.
just like doing the reread and like actually remembering who minor characters are. So like the minor characters I like much more in a reread because I can actually tell them apart and I remember who they are. Because when you're reading this the first time, it's so much and so many people. So someone like Marwyn, you're not gonna remember that name.
No.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to reread and be like, okay.
I'm really liking the reread with Sansa. The first time that I read A Game of Thrones, by that point I knew like I'm gonna like Sansa because everybody tells me that I look like Sophie Turner, so and she's a redhead, I'm gonna like her. But the first time that I read A Game of Thrones, I was like, man, this kid's whiny. Like,
Yeah.
this kid is. Oh, I get why people don't like her.
Yeah.
But on this reread, I feel a lot differently about her.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else?
Javier asks, do you consider doing a spoiler section at the end of the shows? Maybe as time goes on, we're going to have to just think about spoilers as we get into things that are more different
'cause
from the show.
I feel like show spoilers are fair game for this, but books, there are legit book spoilers
That, like,
Things
you
that
that
probably
like
wouldn't wanna
aren't
know.
show stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, yeah. We'll
Yeah,
have to
with,
think about
with
how
a
to handle
first-time
that.
reader, it might not be...
But I think anything that's fair game within the section that we cover each week, we'll just talk about.
Yeah.
Well, I think what Gressel's been doing is pretty good, where he's like, we should pay attention to this thing.
That's what I do, not him.
Doesn't he do that?
You
too?
both do
that's
that.
me.
No, you
do
both
that.
do that.
I'm the one who says it explicitly, like, just want to let you
No,
guys
I
know.
I have a visual in my head of Gressel saying, now this is important.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
That definitely happened in one
No,
of the
you
first
both do it. You
episodes.
both do it.
I don't
of
think
book
Russell
club.
does it. I don't think Russell does it.
Honestly, all three of you do it. You people who are rereading. And I'm just like, it's new to me.
Not me.
All right, guys.
Thanks for sticking with
know-
us. This is a little bit
You
long.
know what I'm going to say?
got
I'm pretty hungry.
Yeah,
I'm so
fucking hungry
Can we
too.
get food?
I'm very hungry. I think
We had a lot of good stuff, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of your facts with us.
pig with
Yeah.
juices.
Each one with a different fruit in its mouth.
Yeah.
That Tyrion didn't get to eat either. Whereas
Yeah,
Hunter
that's.
and
I
Tyrion.
feel like I know.
Yeah.
You can't battle on an empty stomach, Tyrion.
Hey, Gressel, come say bye.
Javier Sansa is also
Come
my
say
favorite
bye.
character. Sansa's my fave. Yeah, somebody in the chat was saying, like, tell Gressel we say hi. We
Oh
miss
yeah,
Gressel's here.
I'm here. I didn't do my reading because I was on my
He's
honeymoon.
weeks behind.
That's. I mean, he's read it like 37 times. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
you're
approximate.
good.
37.
All right.
Uh,
So,
You guys are wrapping up?
yep. And next
Yeah.
week is Catelyn 10 to end.
Really? I have
Yep.
to finish the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, no big deal.
But until
Back to
then-
real life, Gressel.
Yeah, which is Game
Back
of
to
Thrones.
real life, reading our fantasy series.
Yes. For your YouTube channel.
Yes.
So next week is our 10th and final episode dealing with a Game of Thrones,
That's
and
neat.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like a season.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm James,
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Joel.
I'm James.
and that's James, and we
Disembodied voice.
read stuff in a book,
and this was the
It was
book.
this was
awesome.
what was in it.